Mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Sunday. Man, that music was loud. I'm getting old. Hello to everybody on Sunday. Hello. I'm joined today by my brother Ted, who, surprise, is also known on IG as imaginaryaction, aka Julius Downey. That's right. I forgot about that name as well. What's up, Ted?
Hello. Good afternoon.
I forget when you were here last time. But Ted's been on before. There's a handful of folks who have been on multiple times, and it's not because I don't want to invite people back. It's because there's so many awesome people that I just kind of want to get to know and bring on here. But there's multiple reasons to bring Ted back. One, because last time we really got to focus a little bit more on his job, which we'll get into in a little bit. But as folks may remember, Ted works for a small company called Disney, the indie company, on the rise, I hear. But he designs attractions and other entertainment opportunities at the Disney theme parks. And he's an Imagineer, which is like one of the coolest job titles ever, just based on the word.
One of the coolest made-up words ever.
Yes, Imagineer. So we talked about that last time. This time, though, this guy and I are going to go to Legions Con together in November. Yeah, look, he's got his bright day glow green Cabal shirt. So yes, so we're both super excited about this. I've been collecting Legions. He's been collecting Legions now. I've been customizing Legions. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit today about what we're excited to see, and then talk more about something we didn't really get to talk too much about at all last time because it was a little bit sort of on the down low, but now it's not. So we're going to talk about Ted's customs, which I've shared some of it here, but now I actually finally get you to talk about it. So I want to pick your brain on some of that stuff. So we shall do that. But first, let's check in with the fine folks who are choosing to hang out with us today on this wonderful Sunday evening for both folks. We got Eldor, Master Versal Toy Hunter, who's just been killing it with those play sets. I think actually the last time you and I were here, he had a Castle Grayskull design. Man, he's done 2 play sets since then. They're in progress and they're awesome. Hyperdelic is here. What's up, kids? Getty's Toys, I believe, agrees with me on the quality of Eldor's work. We've got Thanos Copter here, as always. Thank you once again, Thanos, for helping out with the links, which we'll get to in a second. Monsieur Copter. Monsieur Copter.
Monsieur Copter.
Monsieur.
Monsieur, don't say the R.
Okay, Monsieur. Got it. Kenzo's Creations. What's up, Kenny? Let's see who else is here. Rick Jones is here. Hello, Rick. Joe Gonzalez. What's going on? You get to meet this guy out at Legions Con. Rick, are you going as well? If so, we could potentially meet him there as well. That'd be amazing to meet a dude who lives 30 miles from me out in New Jersey. KJ Smith, what's going on? Good to see you. Josh Brown, hello. He will also be at Legions Con. I said KJ Smith, but I'm going to say it again. Hello. Let's see. Nolan is here. Hello there, Nolan. Larry's Geeky World. Great to see you. Look at that Sentai Power Ranger there. Let's see. And I think that's it. So hello to all the folks who have jumped in early. Hopefully we'll see other folks, and hello to everybody on the replay. For the folks on the replay, this is what we do here. So during the live, we go through a bunch of needless ephemera. So it's not like really news. Actually, today is going to be very little news and just more about cool stuff that we're looking forward to. I guess Legions Con is news at this convention, and then we'll look at his customs. But as we do that, there's still stuff to look at. And like, I'm a visual person, so I love it as people are talking about something, like I want to see it. And so I'll do my best to show you the stuff here on the show, but I would really, really appreciate it if you could head over and see everybody's stuff at their Instagrams or whatever it is. So over there by Ted, on Ted's left shoulder, is a QR code that'll take you to a URL that should have been running at the bottom, but it hasn't because I forgot. And there it is. It's bit.ly/Brick Something N.E.W.S, and that'll take you to like a list of links. I usually put that up after the live is done. So just, yeah, go there, go see that stuff. Tell them I sent you, or not. Just look at it because it's all great. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the stuff. But before we do that, and as I kind of get us situated here, we talked a little bit about your job. And the reason, so I think it's important for us to talk a little bit more about what you do. First off, I'm going to do this and hide your face for a second.
Sure.
And then I'm going to go.
You don't need to see more of my face. I'm good.
There you go.
I see
Faces are there. Whoop. All right. So we're going to start off looking at some stuff. But first, let's talk about what you do professionally. Let's get back to that little indie company, Disney.
Yeah. French, Disney.
The reason being is because we're about to go to Legions Con, and we get to do this thing that not a lot of people get to do. And I'm super like just honored that we got picked in the raffle. If for those of you that don't know, it's a lottery every year. I submit my name, I got pulled, and you get to have a +1. And Ted's been super into Legions, so I was like, yeah, let's go. But also I figured I'm like a process person, a behind the scenes kind of person. And I know you are too, especially in the work that you do. So we're going to go into like the like behind the scenes in the offices and the studios of where this toy line that you and I both love gets dreamt up and gets designed and gets made, right? Or gets, yeah. So I know you do that all the time in your work, and kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit about what that's like for you in your job, as you and I are then going to be walking into this wildly creative space to see what they do. So if you'd indulge me and the audience, this is that indie theme park. So talk to me about what you do in terms of like how you go from a concept, a creative idea, and then how it becomes an actual thing.
Sure. So for those of you all who don't or not have heard, who have not heard of Walt Disney Imagineering, it's kind of a brainchild of this guy. His name is Walt Disney, that he started in the 50s. And he basically, to tell the long story very quickly, long history very quickly, he basically pilfered from his own studios, artists, architects, set designers, and brought them over to another part from Burbank to next door to Glendale, and basically created like a skunk works to create exhibits and things for things like the New York World Fair. But then eventually he dreamt up this crazy thing called Disneyland, and they built this little park out in for those of you who know Anaheim or California, Southern California, a little city called Anaheim that was just full of literally not known for anything other than like orange groves. Hence it was in Orange County. Anyway, so builds this park opens in 1955, and so this group of Imagineers that he created have been, and I'm part of that, now for many years. I've been making stuff like you see here. So this is one of the projects that I happen to live in Tokyo for just over 2 years to kind of oversee its installation and the construction. This was the Tokyo Disneyland expansion. So if you don't know, there's parks all over the world. They like to say that the sun never sets on a Disney park, because I actually think it's actually a true statement. But so this is the Tokyo Disneyland expansion. Lots of new things added to that Disneyland. These parks are forever growing. And I have an art background, just like Brick, my brother Sergio. It's one of these things. I didn't know I was going to school before to do this. I thought I was going to be a comic book artist or a storyboard artist. And I dabbled in that stuff, but I eventually ended up here and doing graphic design and other things as well. So I think the next slide is kind of saying this is sort of like a vision. I didn't do that piece of artwork, but we have so many talented people at Imagineering who do things like what you see here. And in fact, there are like over 100 different disciplines at Walt Disney Imagineering, including art disciplines and painters, sculptors, writers, our legal department. You got every kind of engineer you can imagine. You've got ride engineers, structural engineers, HVAC, air conditioning and heating engineers, all of those, anything with the ears after it. We've got one of those, but we've got architects, you name it. And then everyone who sort of like keeps the place running, like producers and coordinators and estimating people and schedulers and all that kind of stuff. So all those people come together when we make cool stuff like this. But this was done by one of our concepts artists in-house. And so we envision it. And then I think the next piece there is going to kind of show like what it ends up being. So this is just one of those examples of the things we build. This is for those of you who've heard of a film called Beauty and the Beast from 1992, I want to say.
Last wholest time.
That's right. This is the Beast Castle. This is basically what's inside is this amazing ride that the team and I created called Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast. But we have these amazing artisans from around the world who do this, who make this amazing stuff. And even in the background, that mountain back there is a fake mountain, and there's a huge 1,400 seat theater back there. But so we do this all day long, dream this stuff up and try and make it work and see how it make it feasible, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think there's some shots from inside of this ride. That's part of the queue. So, even you can start to see some of these things I dabble with professionally kind of roll over into like these things that, Rick and I grew up with, that we were interested in sword and sorcery and all those kinds of things. And you never know, like when these kind of things.
Is it the Valiant Knight? Is that the Valiant Knight? Oh, no, that's not.
No, that's actually the worst articulated knight.
Okay, cool.
That's actually non-articulated. That's the opposite of Valiant Knight.
It's a statue.
Architectoneer. Yeah, we got many architects, all kinds of architects. We have architects who build things. We also have called landscape architects who do our landscape and whatnot. So that's part of the queue, and I think there's parts of the ride you'll see in here.
So real quick, one, I got to ride this for the first time in the summer, and it's an amazing ride. But like but for the audience, I love the rides, but I love like the cue and the theming and everything that sort of like sets up the story before and kind of puts you in that mood, right? It's so much of the storytelling happens while you're standing around waiting in the ride. And it's always fun for me to wrap my head around like all the million creative decisions and conversations that go into that, the planning of it, let alone the execution, right? And all the million of artisans and engineers involved. So, and real quick, you did say, yes, like that was in your art earlier, the concept art back here. By the way, this would have been like would have been this? No, it would have been, this.
Yeah, it would have been the castle.
That castle.
Yeah.
But just for like, we're going to go to Legions Con. We're going to sit there and sort of see Nate's going to give a workshop on what he does with the artwork, and Trevor's going to talk about photography. So like, I just want people to understand background wise, that is something that you did at one point for the company and then kind of developed over time.
I think I threw a bunch of stuff out here. So towards the end, you can start to see like what I used to do in my old role.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on then.
And our mom would say, "What did you draw? What did you draw?"
Yeah.
But next,
wait, so you drew that? Sorry, go ahead.
Which one did you draw? So this is part of the ride experience. There are these trackless vehicles, we call them, and you're actually dancing in these vehicles. But again, all of these smarter people than me who figure out how these things work and how they move. Kind of you have to have a diversity of disciplines come together, to do things like that. Like you said, on my part, like I'm just one of many storytellers. I mean, I would argue that our Katie Barnes, who's our lead set decorator. I've worked with her on many projects. She's a storyteller, but in her own way, right? She's setting the stage, and the little objects and accoutrements that are around the place or the environment sort of tell a story. The architects tell a story, so there's lots of different kinds of ways to tell stories. This is part of that finale of that ride, and these killer dancing audio animatronic figures,
like giant action figures. This was
giant action figures, literally. And here's the funny thing: if you didn't notice, but actually we oversized those guys just a little bit. So Belle is actually like 6 feet tall, but you wouldn't know. But we've learned over many years, like if you kind of just, it's theater. It's all theater, right? It's moving
larger than life.
So you kind of have to project a little out there. So scale is important. All of those things. Music is a huge part. We have a music department, of course, because music's another way to tell stories. And
check out those soft goods too.
So all soft. We have hard and soft goods because sometimes one calls for the other, right?
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Dancing. And then this is the latest thing I've been working on. This is called a little project called Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This happens to be the one in Magic Kingdom in Florida. And we're about to open up its sibling here in California, November 15th. And let me, so this is a cool new ride. That's first time we've brought Disney's only African-American princess to life and tell a brand new story of hers, Tiana from the Princess and the Frog. And I think so it's a flume ride. It's got a big, great drop. And here's this amazing finale scene with, I think we got 19 original characters. Oh, hold on. Well, check this out. So now I know I've sort of hit the pinnacle of my career because I've been part of a brand new story that's been created for the attraction that's been turned into a golden book.
Oh yeah.
So you made it.
Yeah. That's right.
A golden book. And actually that scene, I think it's
Unlock.
This is amazing. So this amazing artist.
Sorry, I'm
her name is Shanice Alogaga. Well, I'll send you a link because she does amazing artwork. So that little finale scene you saw there was like right here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hold on, sorry. I thought that was faster to be able to do this, but I guess not. Oh, I see. Yeah. That is the scene. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do. And music is a huge part of this attraction. So I mean, again, it's all the things. It's theater on a next level. And so this is what I used to do in my day job. I used to, draw and design things like this. This is an exterior of a restaurant. Again, Beauty and the Beast. That's not I know I keep getting stuck with Beauty and the Beast things. Not that I don't love it. But this was in Florida. So that's like the kind of thing I used to do day in, day out, sketch digitally. I started with Real Medium before. And then let's see. What else next? What else we got up here?
So was this something you did or no? This was not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. This is. I think everything from this point is my artwork. So this is way back there, probably like 15 years ago, when I used to do this stuff. And so I'd work with a creative director or work with other business partners, and we want to do a restaurant and we want to theme to Beauty and the Beast. Or in this case, it's how can we bring people the next one. To Belle and Maurice.
Oh, right.
Dad's house, and do this interactive experience in there. And so it starts with a sketch, and then I work with the architects to kind of oversee how we kind of, make it real. And then you can see in the next slide, the real. So
so it's funny. Again, I'm trying to break it down in terms of like the toy process, the analog, right? It's like you design the thing, but then you got to figure out work with the sculptor, and the sculptor needs to be thinking about not just what's going to look cool, but what would actually be able to be pulled from a mold.
Yep.
Right. And has to think of that and then work with folks at the factory, all of that stuff. Very
similar. An engineer, right? And you have to work with an engineer, like in toys, or to figure out like, okay, what kind of durometer of the plastic, or how's that arm socket thing going to do its thing? Here I'm working with, again, people who know things like engineering and architecture to say, well, that roof line has to be this tall, or that's technically that's a head knocker, or all these things. So we kind of have to work hand in hand, and it starts with like maybe an idea that I come up with that's influenced by other people's sort of like suggestions.
Sure.
But then what's cool is it kind of goes through more filters, and it kind of morphs and changes along the way. And so, and then it becomes something more, like what you see here. And again, this is like a concept, that I would draw of an interactive experience. And these used to be my job. And, man, there's so many more talented people than me these days. But, we do like, I don't know, create like 5 of these things a day, something like this, just throwing ideas out there. And it's not unlike what they do in animation, just quick sketches and quick, artwork and whatnot. And then this was an interactive experience where you're kind of in the castle, you get transported away, and you tell a little story with Belle, and there's an animated Lumiere back there.
This guy.
Yep, there he is.
Right, like you design it, you come up with an idea, and I'm sure it wasn't just the drawing, right? I'm assuming by this point when you're doing art, you've already talked about the possibility of making it a moving character.
Yep, yeah, we work, even traditionally with like, puppeteers and other engineers, and those two disciplines come together to figure out how do you make this little dude, with spindly little arms move, because he does. And you'll see him in the next, I think there's a picture of him in the next photo. And he's totally brought to life. Like you see him back there up on the mantle. He moves and he sings and he talks and he does all the things.
I still haven't seen this. This is Florida? What is this?
That's in Magic Kingdom in Florida. This thing is great. Like this is the tear maker. People like inevitably cry here. It's amazing. I mean, it's just so great. It's all guest participation. We cast guests to be part of. That's what the guests, like so the older kid that's up there, a little gal holding like Mrs. Potts, the teapot, right? They play a part. It's like telling a backyard play, and then the little girls playing Chip, and it's a great way to get your family up there, and adults play a part in this too. So it's super fun, but yeah.
That's cool, but where are the demons? Like, it's Mythic Legions. Oh, there you go. Cool. You got to design demons.
Yeah. So once in a while, I get to exercise my demons and go back to my true nature of the stuff that Brick and I grew up with in toys. And so I would sketch something like this, like those two guys back there, all those life drawing classes from my my state school education and decades of reading comic books. And then
he's cut off. This guy's cut off.
Yeah, he's cut off. But eventually then like they turn it into things like that's the physical thing right there. But then they turn it into merchandise. So look at that. Isn't that cool? So this is the guy on the left that's cut off. So this is a candle holder, but like it's amazing, right? It's just
that stuff you just get at the park. It's like a resin.
It's just a resin thing. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
I'm putting you into solo, but then oh, I know why. Sorry, I knew there was a quicker way. Got it. Never mind. Sorry.
Yep. So yeah, so that's what we do.
That's cool. So like in some ways, and I know this isn't even this is just some of it. You've even done like a Marvel thing that even got like toys made. So but just as far as background, you now get to see how this like company that you're a huge fan of, Four Horsemen, kind of does their thing and how they're able to like get this team of like superhero creative people and technical minded people, marketing people to pull off what they've been able to pull off in terms of indie toys. And so cool. On that note, is there anything in particular you're curious about, like asking or trying to figure out how they do?
Yeah, because I come from, a creative studio in my workplace, and, it's obvious that these guys are all creatives as well. And I would love to see everything as part of the process, because I'm sure you've, for all of you that are here, you've heard, maybe Brick sort of talk about this, and we probably talked about this the last time I was on. It's kind of like, we're of a certain age and we can kind of like say things like, man, you kids today don't know how good you got it with these figures and the articulation and the features and the details. Cause, I grew up in the period, the era of like, even before the first Star Wars figures, like Mego dolls and like, and I mean, all those kinds of things. And it just, what we get right now with, these amazing, speaking of,
oh yeah. Love
that. This is just like, you guys, you got to understand, this is like, to me, somebody who's been such a fan of toys. Oh, sorry. There you go.
There he is.
Who's such a fan of toys. It's like, man, who studied art. It's like, I have such an appreciation for this. And it's funny because, Brick for the longest time was talking about these things. I mainly collect Marvel Legends, and I have a huge Marvel Legends collection that you can't, well, let's see.
They've seen bits of it before.
There's a bit of it back there. A little bit back there, but that's just the Spider-Man shelf. But other side of it.
For folks who've wondered, like, dude, don't you check out any Marvel Legends? You like Marvel? And And Joe Classify is like, no, I don't got to. I just go to my brother's house and look at his stuff.
Yeah. So yeah. So there you go. Back in the day. Back in my day. So I'm just fascinated. I mean, I'm just dead curious. It's kind of interesting. I'm assuming that so much of like what I do in my professional life, I'm sure there's a lot of like common sort of like practices. I'm curious, like I want to ask them, like, do you guys at Four Horsemen, how do you come up with what characters do? Do you brainstorm? Do you like, how much of this is like calculated? Like, well, we know there's an audience for this or this and whatnot, or is it all just your own personal preferences, things you loved as kids that y'all are, creating now? And, it's like, are you doing it as much for an audience that you want to grow, or you're really just servicing yourselves? And, honestly, if I had their jobs, it'd probably be like half and half, or maybe 60-40 servicing myself, because I love this stuff.
Okay. Don't clip that. But yeah, no, it's fascinating because it's like, obviously I think you're into the stuff that you do to a certain extent, but you're probably not like, I know you're not like hardcore Beauty and the Beast guy, not to smash anybody's misconceptions, but like, can you imagine being Eric Treadaway and the rest of the Four Horsemen? They're like, well, we're going to create our own line and we're going to make the stuff that we love, right? Sword and sorcery, all of like demons and monsters. And, but then now it's like, this is what they do. And so it's like, well, let's just keep making more. Like it's still a thing that it's really based on what they love, so I've been fascinated. Like I used to do design professionally too. And it was always cool when you get a client that was like, oh, this is rad. And then it was like some other thing like that I wasn't at all interested in. Right. So to be them and just be like, well, we've got first one. This is also the big deal about this Legions Con, which, by the way, that's probably a good place to come here, is that it's the 25th anniversary of them as a studio doing work, designing figures for other people initially, right? Whether it's Mattel, McFarlane, other companies. But then 10 years of their first line, which is Mythic Legions. And since then, they've launched 2 other very successful lines, which we'll get into in a little bit, between Mythic and then, they get that they're scratching that sort of like D&D-ish, sword
and sorcery.
Yeah, that sword and sorcery sort of itch, but then they're like, we kind of like sci-fi too. Well, let's do Cosmic Legions. And then along the way, it's sort of like, well, yeah, but there's this other stuff, but it doesn't fit anywhere. Figure Obscura. So that's kind of what I'm curious to hear them talk a little bit more about that. And sort of at what point did they decide, yeah, we're now ready to do a second/a third line, like at what point did they sort of decide that it was time, that Mythic had grown enough and it's time, we have the capacity now to create some new things. So it's a couple of different things that I've been thinking about. But I'm really just going to be there to soak it all in and plus like take advantage of some of the fun goodies. Like you and I get to do some of the things, and all the other interns are going to get to do some of the things that they're unleashing this year before others. And we'll get to that. So awesome. With that as your background and sort of the way you're going to be approaching this, as well as like a toy collector and customizers, we'll see in a little bit. I think let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on at the con specifically. And I was thinking like this first part, if we could just kind of do a little bit of a brainstorm of like, we actually haven't looked at this whole thing and like what the activities are. Like, what are you thinking you're interested in? So for those who are unfamiliar, you'll notice here, the actual con starts on Saturday. Like that's when the sort of con proper, Saturday and Sunday, is open to the public. But before then, there's a series of events. So if we work our way backwards from Saturday and Sunday, on Friday is essentially day 0. And that's going to be the annual big next wave reveal that they call G-Con. And then the day before, on Thursday, is going to be this thing we've been talking about, where we get to go to the studio and check it out. What do you call it? I'm blanking again. Intern for a day.
Intern for a day.
Yeah. So you and I are going to get there on Wednesday, and and then we're going to wake up and go be interns for a day. So let's, I was gonna, let's see, what's the best way to, you know what, before we do that, let's talk about the con proper. So that'll be G-Con will be that whole day where they'll reveal the wave, which is just going to be a whole thing in and of itself. But then day 1 and day 2, you can kind of see on Saturday, they open at 8 a.m. and that's when folks can just kind of go through and do all the things that are there, do all the shopping and the looking and the gawking and the talking and the meeting and all that. But then there are some things here that I think are really fascinating. So there are things that are still meant to be a surprise. So it's like, what is that? A lot of folks have been kind of still wondering, like, this is their big anniversary. Is this the year when we're going to get a dragon? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't know if any of us are truly ready for that. But I do wonder what this reveal could be. It's up on the 3rd floor. It says, let's just say that it'll be a whole new way to adventure within the realm of mythos. And I actually wasn't sure, is this the thing? And Joe maybe and others can help me out. Is that going to be, is this the armory experience or is this something else? I don't know.
They said the armory experience. Well, are you talking Saturday? Is this Saturday?
Yeah, this is Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I watched a little bit of that reveal with Jeremy and I forget the other gentleman's name, but it sounded like you're gonna get like tickets in the morning. Tickets are free, and then it's like an all day thing because you get like you have like your whatever time to go and
that's right. You're right. So that wouldn't match this. That's not this. And they didn't say it would be on the 3rd floor anyway. And so like, and Adam's pointing out, armory is on the main floor. So that makes sense. That's not this 2 to 4, but is it the launch of the video game, which has been in the works for a couple years now? And I know that the one of the versions of the alpha is going to be launching relatively soon. So maybe it is just hey, go check out more details about what that's going to be like. Maybe there'll be some sort of like, I don't know, but Joe says, yep, it's definitely something else that they haven't revealed what it is. So that's fun. But again, it is on the 3rd floor. So who knows what that is? That would make sense if it was more of the game thing and you kind of like walk up there and check it out. I don't know. Then as far as like, so the whole day is the thing. And then there's a private exhibitor only 4-H sales, which is for those of us who are going to be exhibitors. That's, myself, Adam and Derek, who's in the chat, folks like us working tables and stuff for Spiro, or Josh, who's going to be an exhibitor. So, which is kind of cool. Like, I wasn't sure how that would all work. And honestly, this is the first time I'm actually looking through it as we go. So it's like, oh, good to know. I don't have to worry too much about that, but I don't know, is there anything? So there's that. And then I guess day 2 is kind of just open. Again, you see this 10 to 12 and 1 to 3 is again, whatever that thing is on the 3rd floor. There is this whole photo of 1,000 swigs that a couple of people are working on, including Terrence St. James. I'm going to bring a swig and get it in that photo.
Yeah, I don't have a swig. Ooh.
Okay. And then, folks are going to be tearing stuff down. But I know that's very general, but what is like more interesting is when you start to scroll through this and you see all the exhibitors. And I was hoping that you and I could kind of talk about some of the things that we're looking forward to, who all is going to be there. Obviously, won't be able to cover everyone, but I figure this would be just like a select look at some of those things. So all that to say, not a whole lot, but we'll get there in a second. And here is the map of the showroom. So you and I can get ready, and anybody else who's going. There's the main showroom. And then there's a couple of other smaller spaces where people will be. So people should check that out, including the hallway outside of the main rooms. So these folks here. And then this is another sort of the side room where 4-H will actually be, 4 Horsemen will be selling their stuff. So as well as the armory experience. So like there really isn't, there's real reason to go to all of these things. But it's a lot. For people curious, I will mainly be parking my butt over here down at 74 and 75. But right off the bat, was there just throwing out some of the things, and we'll look at some stuff, but what are some of the things that just listing out that you're curious to see? If not actual like vendors, maybe the types of things you're curious to see or
Yeah,
maybe things you're looking
yeah.
for?
I think I'm most interested in kind of seeing, other makers, people doing things, some customizers, and not to buy anything of theirs, but I would love to kind of pick brains, because I dabble in it, and I kind of would love, honestly, if I could, more than I'd want to even, and you got some of my favorites you're about to show on the list here, but like I would just love to pick brains and see, if anyone's actually doing it. I would love to see them doing it, painting heads and doing things like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, all of those other sort of peripheral things that people are making, for any kind of Legions figure, mythic or cosmic, like soft goods or weapons or environments and all those kinds of things. Because, we can see that stuff on Instagram, right? But it's one thing to see it on a screen and another thing to see it like up close, and really look at the details. Because I'll be honest with you, it's kind of like I wasn't as impressed with Mythic Legions or even Cosmic Legions until I saw them in person. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Now I see what he's talking about. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, it's kind of like everything that we said about being at Intern and getting to kind of talk to them about the studio and the behind the scenes stuff. It's going to be the same thing. It's not just looking at this stuff in hand, but it's being able to sit across from a table and talk to the folks who create it and kind of pick their brains about how they do what they do and just get to meet folks. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. You know what I'm not seeing here yet is I thought there were like panels and stuff, and I don't know if that's changed. Honestly, I haven't this is me now officially using my time on the show to actually prepare and actually look at what's going on. So I haven't been totally paying attention to that kind of stuff. But in the past, like they've had like painting workshops, or they've had
that'd be great.
pop and swap workshops. So that
that.
might be also something, if it happens, that you could check out. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's so there's a shout out for 59. I'll take a look at what that is, KJ. Okay, so then let's go ahead and take a look at some stuff. You know what? I was gonna show some footage from somebody else who was at Intern for a day. Let me just see. And they weren't able to respond. So I don't know if I can. So I'm not gonna. So we won't look at that video, but let's go ahead and just move into what's gonna be at the show. And first off, War Horsemen obviously are gonna be selling exclusive War Horsemen product. 1 2-pack for Mythic Legions, 1 2-pack for Cosmic, and this is the Mythic version. So this is their 2-pack of Gaspar the Unamused and Gorich the Unpredictable, which for those who aren't familiar are actually sort of like tribute figures to people that work in the company, Chris and George. But for you, is this one of the things that you're looking to grab, or is there any interest here?
Oh, heck yeah. These are amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, no, the
Cool.
whole, the thing, one of the things I love about what the Four Horsemen are doing with this line is, and I think it's mostly in a respectful way. And when I say respectful, is like they're borrowing from lots of different sources, whether it's like based in mythology or if it's based in history that might be associated with an actual culture and all these kinds of things, but they're putting a twist on it, right? Like clearly that monk looking dude, could be of either like Himalayan or Tibetan influence, or even Chinese Buddhist monks, but it's like, it's a twist, right? It's got something going on there. And I love that. And it's a bit like George Lucas and Star Wars, right? Whereas like the world he creates has things that remind us of our own world that are real, and it's got grit, and it feels like things are lived in and worn in, or things that you can kind of relate to because you've seen examples of it before. But then but like Star Wars, but then he kind of like puts his own sort of take on it. And I think that's exactly to me what this kind of stuff represents.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I'm right there with you. I'm super excited about this one because of the sort of like real world references mixed into this fantastic world. I think the second I saw these, I was like, "Yep, that's easily a 2-pack that I'm gonna get." More so, like I think Derek, the one on the left, right? So this guy that we're looking at excited me the most. But also, as you'll see here, there's like all sorts of parts, as you
Yep.
know, as Nolan was pointing out. It's like, oh, that's rad. You get additional legs. Yeah. So like these 2-packs are truly packed in with a ton of stuff, especially because it's sort of tied in with the character. If you read the bios and stuff, there's kind of a reason for a lot of these little items that they come with, including the toy.
Right.
But Mythic Legions and Cosmic being what they are, they're built on this sort of Lego-esque model where you can switch stuff up. And
Yep.
so as a customizer, when you're looking at this, are you going, oh yeah, yeah, that character's dope, I want that character? Are you going, oh yeah, yeah, that character is dope, but his left arm is really cool and his like his robe is really cool and I can make this thing?
Yep. I mean,
Is it all the above?
it's all of the above. We've talked about, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was just sending Rick a photo of a character that, like, straight up out of the box. He's an elf, right? I forget his name. I'm terrible with the names, but sometimes to me, it's just like what Legion or Four Horsemen come up with just as it is, right in the box. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
that's perfect. I don't want to mess with that at all. But
Yep.
then sometimes I see things and it's like, wow, I want to tweak that or do that. And like I was just showing this to you too. It's like this is what's his name? This is starts with a V. No.
Forgus Vermilius?
Is it Forgus Vermilion?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
your
right.
flying monkey.
Right. And so I added these wings, right?
I
And
guess I laughed because it totally reminded me of like a Wizard of Oz, but then as you pointed out, it's also reminds me of D&D
yep,
Avenger.
the main bad, yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
main
yeah,
bad,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, I mean, all of the above, like you said, and then like like as I was looking at the guy on the right, and I was like, I don't know if I'm as interested in him or this and that, but now I've messed with these things enough that I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, but you know what?
Yep.
For whatever reason, as good as, I mean, as amazing as Trevor does the job with these things, I'm blown away with them already as they are. But then when I
Yep.
see them in real life, for whatever reason, suddenly it's like, oh, now I really want it. And I can just imagine that, like, when you see what it is there, and actually, I like what's there. I would keep it exactly as it is. But I know that you know, like you said, pop and swap Lego. You can make
Mhm.
your own thing out of these, and that's
Yeah.
part of the fun. And in other words, you may think you don't like it until you start to mess with it, and then you're
Mhm.
like, oh, wait a minute, this is something even better. And for better or for worse, the more of these things you buy, suddenly you have more of these. Like I have like, under this couch behind me, a whole plastic case full of all these extra bits that I can start to mess around with them now, and
Yep.
switch things up like that. Look at that. That's amazing.
I know. It's wild.
I mean, come on.
And it's so cool to like really have this level of fun with these parts, right? Like we've
Right.
seen that head before, but they're
Yep.
like, oh well, what if we did some paint on it? And it's really cool. So yeah, I'm with you on these. A lot of these are like, I'm not super into the design of this one as is, honestly, and that's not a diss because like I
Right.
know there are folks who love it. People are really excited. I know some people saw this and like, oh, that's great. That totally is like a Boba Fett like tribute figure. Like, cool. Like, go for it. That's awesome. Um, but I lean more here, on the figure on the left, and I love the different options and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be falling in line for this in that exhibitor time or whatever. And then there's the Cosmic Legion one, right?
Sure, yeah.
Where I'll make sure I do this. Okay, good. I didn't close everything. Yeah, this is the Cosmic Legion end of it. And this one is kind of funny because similarly it's a 2-pack, but again, chock loaded with parts. And it seems like they've done this before. Like they've released deluxe builder packs with a ton of parts, really emphasizing the customizability, the swappability. But it seems like this year between the 2-packs they're really filled with parts for that purpose.
Right.
And this one, especially the theme being sort of like that, what do they call it? The amazing alien and creature creator, based on that old toy back in the day where you'd color it.
Yeah, our cousin had that. Yeah.
Who
Season, Mark Season.
Oh, he did. Okay. Because I remember seeing it when that sort of rub it, right? You'd rub it and kind of get the drawing.
3 different plates, like head, upper body, middle, and then you create combo. Yeah.
And that's exactly what this is here. But is this a set that you're looking for?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
are there characters in this one, or is it parts for you for this one?
I think it's both. If you go back to that first slide with all of it, I mean, look, no, never mind. I mean, it's just like, look at all this stuff. To me, I look at this and going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, it's storytelling, right? I mean, it's awesome that I have all of these very specific Marvel Legends figures of, around me of comic books I've been reading for 40 something years, right? But it's like, and that's cool because it's like I want exactly that Dark Phoenix and I want exactly that Spider-Man, etc. But what's cool about this is like, and this thing's what we used to do. It's like when we were kids, it's like you would mix your Buck, my little 3 3/4 Buck Rogers figures with our G.I. Joe figures and our
for sure. Right? Some people did. I obviously we did in our house.
Right. And you kind of tell different stories, and that's to me, going back to what we're talking about with my job, it's all storytelling and like each. What I love about this is like that the details are all here, that they all kind of tell a story. It's kind of like, how did he get that gun? Or who is this guy? What's his job? Or like, even these blade things on his arm. It's like sort of like it starts to telegraph that, these are things that he cuts people with, or whatever that is, or I don't know. Yeah. So how would you start to imagine like how would he fight with those things? It's super cool. I mean.
So what you're saying is, if people out there have kids, what they should do is buy these expensive toys instead of paying for college, so that they someday might become a Imagineer. I'm
not making any guarantees, but you never know.
No, I joke, but like think about how much of what you do now is influenced by being surrounded by toys and watching cartoons and all that, right?
Huge part of it. I mean, it's funny, and I know that there's so many more like me at work because you walk in their office, they have a bunch of action figures. It's because when we get like a creative assignment, suddenly we just have to pull from all the references we know, and we do a fair amount of research.
Right.
But a lot of these references we have is because like, we grew up on the same cartoons, or we grew up reading the same comic books, or watching the same movies, and all these kinds of things.
Adam saying the cosmic one looks more like Boba Fett to me, and I hear you, and I think the point is, you get this one, you get the other one, you take the head from the other one, you pop it on that body, and you've got a character that looks quite a bit like a great Mandalorian bounty hunter tribute figure.
They know what they're doing.
So this is one that I'm not necessarily good, only because I need to obviously like set limits, and that's really funny to say because we're about to get to a figure where all the limits eroded pretty quickly. So I'm probably not going for this one. Definitely going for the Mythic one. But cool. We're just even starting. Here's more of the shots of like all the possibilities, which is amazing, right? In that kit, which again gets in your brain and you're like, oh, well, cool. I can make all of these, but like, if I want to have all of these, I got to get multiple sets. Okay, well, let's move on from that because here, Nate, sorry, let's stick here for a second because this is Nate's work on the packaging, sort of like breaking in. Clearly, this is a sort of different, fun kind of set that is less about, hey, these are canon characters, and more about this homage to a really great 70s, I guess, 80s, early 80s toy.
I was interacting with it in the 70s. So, but then again, I realized too, like a lot of the things we were like playing with or interested or watching on TV from the 70s was actually from the 60s, right? Like those, like some of the cartoons were older, right? So I don't know when this first came out.
But like clearly, it's definitely something they're working in and into this product, and it's meant to be more of like, hey, it's an exclusive, it's a unique thing to the con, but it also is filled with parts that you can work into the main toy line. If that's your thing where you're like, I don't understand, this doesn't fit into the lore, then it's cool. You don't have to understand it. You can just move on and look for something like this. Not that this is actually in the lore, but point is still there. Other folks were asking earlier, I think it was Ray, was like, hey, are you gonna talk about that Frankenstein? And yes, we're gonna talk about Frankenstein's creature or Frankenstein's monster. So yesterday, was it Thursday, we were teased with the upcoming Figure Obscura figure that comes out right around this time every year. The first one, no, the first one was Krampus, but he wasn't known as a Figure Obscura figure. The first Figure Obscura figure that they teased was around this time. That was the Horseman, the Headless Horseman. I can't talk today. And that was a Halloween thing, right? So it's perfect. And now we're coming around, and they decided to do a Frankenstein's creature based on Mary Shelley's work. They really like leaned into the text, the literature, rather than the sort of like pop cultural vision that we have of him, the Herman Munster looking universal monster, right? Which is great. And like we all know, it's kind of a foregone conclusion that the retail version will be green. They haven't said that, but these things always come with like a did you see the pins and stuff? They all in, and they come with an enamel pin. Yeah. The enamel pin, as far as I could tell, is totally green. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's like, yeah.
The mug, right?
The
mug the same thing? Green? I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't look too closely at the mug.
But I was watching, you sent the link over for the Dork Lair review, or basically it was a reveal, right? It was a reveal to him because he got it days or a week before. It was revealed
every year. That
awesome,
and he was saying, beautiful bastard.
He's an educator, right? And he was saying how this is much closer to Mary Shelley's actual description.
Oh yeah. He's an English teacher too. Yeah.
Right. He even talked about like how, we call it Frankenstein's monster because the Universal Studios, Universal Films from like back in the day. Right. But really, they were saying a creature is actually more of an accurate description because he wasn't mindless, right? He was, so I actually think that this is probably more faithful. Not probably. Faithful to the original source material. So
similar to the way they leaned into Wukong. They did their research on that and really tried to capture different elements from different versions of the depictions of Wukong. But also same goes for the I can't think today. Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes, Mask of the Red Death.
Mask of the Red Death, right? Mm-hmm. So that's their thing with this Figure Obscura line. And again, I want to acknowledge that us going to this Legions Con thing is awesome in general, but we're going on this really big sort of anniversary year, and it really is like a celebration of the 25 years of existence, 10 years of the line, and now fast forward, it's 2024, and they've got effectively three solid lines that operate, as three separate things, but then have parts that interchange.
That's amazing. Something. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Or I was going to say, which is what gets me in trouble, because initially I was like, okay, cool, I'll get the one. And then, I was telling you, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just get another Centaur for reasons. They're like, oh, $10 flat rate shipping. And then later in the day, I'm talking with Oz. And then the whole time after seeing Dork Lair's review, Bill's review, I'm looking at his pops and his swaps. And I was like, oh, yeah, that does look good with that other head. And he put on the little, I call it the Mike Mignola head, right? It's totally like but the Hagnon head. And I was like, man, it would be really cool. Like this sculpt on this thing. Like it's not like they're just taking existing parts, right? They sculpted new parts with all those sort of staples and / stitching. And it's a whole new, effectively a new body type, taller, a little lanky, a little leaner. Right. And it's such a cool looking body that like, oh man, I kind of want to see like multiples of this thing with different heads. And so it's okay. Joe never watches. I ended up getting 2 more. So Joe Gonzalez, yes, sir. Absolutely. Because I love the head with the Marley, the iron mask kind of head on this thing. I love the idea of it, one being completely naked, or with the wraps, and I don't know, probably put on some soft goods on some of them, and so that's where I
like a whole. You're gonna have a whole little squad of
3 of them. Yay, like 3, and then they have enough different heads. Dorclair, I don't have his thing here, but I should. You know what? Let's go ahead and bring that up since we're here.
While you're looking for that, one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that we were talking about on the Cabal yesterday, which going back to 21, I was kind of laughing, or not laughing at, but just going, wow, 25 years of Four Horsemen Studios. But you know, my first interaction with their stuff, and I didn't know who they were at the time. Yeah, look at that. That's amazing, right?
Right? Like, how could I not have that version of that guy?
Well,
Sorry.
you have more reasons. I don't have that special head. You got it. So.
Yeah. Sorry,
Like,
keep going.
That's dope. That's amazing. But the first, I didn't know it at the time until you actually explained it to me. Like when McFarlane in the 90s was starting his toy line, right? First the Spawn stuff. And then he started like diving into other things. He had like McFarlane monsters, and I had like the werewolf. And I remember there being a set. I'm not even sure because I was like in college. I don't remember if I actually had this one or not. But it was like a Frankenstein's monster kind of set, and this whole thing with actual like table, the gurney thing that he's on, etc. An eagle-like creature.
Yep.
And it was a trip, so it's kind of funny to me. Like, wow, this is kind of full circle, right? This is something like they did, like a story and a thing they approached in the 90s, and here they are kind of doing it again, but like doing it their own way. I think there's some cool like full circle stuff happening there.
It's true, especially on their anniversary year, 100%. I wonder if they did like those Wet Works vampire and wolf, which I loved as a younger person. But it is $70 since Ray was asking how much they are, and it's a trip because it has all of this additional stuff. Where's the picture? I guess this is probably the best.
Is it still available, by the way, or are they sold out?
It is. There's like a warning when you get on there. It says there's very few left, but I mean, a few of the allotment for the online pre-order. Right. I'm sure there's going to be. Well, I'd bet money that there would be some at the con, right. But you can see like all the table and everything that comes with this, and this tray and the bell jars and all of that stuff. So yeah, I did get 3, but I'm gonna like part out all that stuff, and there is going to be a part swap at the con. So I'll have a bunch of those parts to just maybe swap out for whatever people have.
Are these shipping soon? Like now?
This is in stock, so it will be here.
Oh,
yeah, that's the beauty of these Figure Obscura drops too, is that they drop fast.
Wow.
So if you do, talk to me, Ray. But yeah, just and the metal head from that Dorclair has is from the Jacob Marley figure, the Christmas Carol one, and on the inside of the safe, there's that sort of secret alt head. The Christmas ones always come with little gifts. That's kind of been a thing, little surprises. Anyway, there's this stuff, and he also, so that's what I stupidly did. But look at that. Look at the paint on that. We've seen this head multiple times. But it's just the way it's painted with the eyeballs and stuff, and the
you barely got like pupils, right? It's like it's got like severe cataract or something.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. I think this is cool, and just again, we haven't even gotten past what they've got, but again, Nate Barch killing it with the artwork. Yeah. And there's the figure. So yes, and cool. I'm glad you got to hear that. Yeah, that if you ordered it, it's coming. You did get one, right?
Yeah.
It should be here within usually maybe like 2 weeks they start shipping. 3 weeks, I don't know. So
I don't know where I'm gonna put it, but I mean, I'm into it.
Yeah. Oh, well, shush. Don't mention such things. Okay, then the Legion's Armory experience. I'll just talk. I'm not going to go into detail, but basically they're doing like a Build-A-Bear, Build-A-Night kind of thing. And so you all just heard that like I'm stupid and bought 3 of those things. I am not going to get the second pack. I'm saying this publicly because I will not, the Cosmic Legions 2-pack. And I am contemplating maybe not even getting these. So I don't know. I will have a shot at this at Intern. So I've already spoken with someone and told them that if I don't, they can have my stuff. But are you going in for this? And I know the answer, but why don't you tell the folks?
Yeah, here, stick on that red guy. This did it for me right here.
Okay.
And if for all of you who, if you remember, I think was it the 90s when oh gosh, the Dracula movie came out. What's his name? Frank Coppola's Dracula movie came out.
Yep.
Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman as
And Gary
Dracula.
Oldman.
That opening scene with Vlad,
Mhm.
Dracula, or whatever his name was, in that
Yep.
red armor, man, that was just beautiful. When I saw this, that's what it reminded me of. I was like, I got to have some version of this, whether it's this exact build or I already started. I texted you from work, like someone had built in the Cabal or something, a little maker online where you could combine all the different things. But man, when I saw that, it's like, I got to do that. And, we've spoken about knights before. I'm not one of the knights. I'm not so much into the knights, but when it gets to like, villainous, evil kind of like type of characters, that's like, that's up my alley. I kind of like that. And I started messing with this little combiner that somebody made.
Oh shoot! I wish I had that link. I forgot to get that link. But yes, there's like an online combiner, which is so cool. Reminded me.
They don't look great, but like, when I saw those, I just, and honestly, it's the storytelling, it's putting things together, and when you start to do that, you start to realize like, wow, there's a lot of potential here. Looking to see if I got it somewhere, but
the tricky thing for me is like it's totally all that. The challenge is reminding myself I don't have to tell all the stories. But yes, like it's cool stuff. I love this idea as Nolan pointed out, or who is it? Yeah. I think it really is such a great idea for this particular brand of toys. It feels like a no-brainer, and I think at this point of the life of the line, it makes a whole lot of sense, right? To do. Now you can kind of let go a little and be like, hey, folks,
can I share? So
yeah.
So like,
oh, is that what you got? That's what you got.
These are just like weird like combos, that I kind of came up with. Like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought.
Yeah, someone did put together a this online interface for you to kind of like mix and match parts.
Yeah,
And
the proportions are
sorry,
off because they're just using the Photoshop app or the.
They took this image basically and then just Photoshop it, kind of like that creature creator thing we were looking at.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I'm solo here.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. It's funny. I'm showing this thing. Yeah, like that's the thing. There's a lot in here that I do want. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting some Frankenstein creature parts, so I'm good. Like that's where that money went. Anyway, that's going to be cool. And it's a huge new thing. But we should probably move. Let's go here for a second, man. There's a ton of really cool things about Mythic Legions that we just saw that's like really Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions related. But there's equally, and I think what I appreciate more is that, I collect a lot of things, and I don't know that I could just go to celebrate one of the lines that I collect, but to know that this has basically become like this indie toy company hub thing, kind of, like a show to go see all of those things, is fantastic. It's like I don't know, to be able to like meet all the different folks in one space and see their goods. That said, I am going to be going to Table along with Derek and along with Adam, who are in the chat, to sell some AWOC figures, and just wanted to let folks know, come through, say hello. I'd love to meet folks in real time or in real life, but also like the figures are amazing. So you should check these figures out. This will be the sort of newest assortment of figures out that will be available, as well as older ones. But then also speaking with Jason, and the goal is to have some prototypes available for people to look at. Can't say which ones just yet. It's not so much that it's a secret, but it's kind of a question mark as to what will still be around before going off to do what they need to do. And definitely we'll have like photos as well. So as people come up, we'll kind of like show all the other stuff that's in the works and the progress, as well as like really show how, just like with Legions, you can do the popping and swapping and of parts we'll kind of showcase like what you can do with these figures, whether it's like dressing them up with soft goods, doing like swaps of parts among the line, but also with other lines. Like Jason did a really good job of that, and selling me early on, even on the Kickstarter, showing like, hey, these weapons and stuff, all this is going to be compatible with Masterverse and to a certain extent Mythic Legions. And so we'll be showing some of that stuff off. So come through. And then I will just say that next weekend, if you happen to be in Atlanta, check out Joe Lanta or just watch Spiro's social media, because there's going to be a big reveal there. And this was sort of the tease. And it is not, in fact, Derek Chandler singing in a dope furry outfit, as I initially thought. So I retract that. It is not true. But it is something really cool, especially for long time just toy fans. I think they'll be really into what's revealed. So check that out. And then we'll sort of see if any of this, what's revealed, will still be around to show at Legions Con too.
I want to just talk about a comment that Derek, what was it about?
Was it this one?
Ray.
Okay, well, before that, since I brought it up, absolutely, we'd love to get the AWOC tribe. So if you're there, please come through. We'll try to schedule a time for all of us to take photos, and of course, take individual photos along the way. The giant hammer that Thane comes with, the big gorilla dude, will be there, and like the big life-size one for people to take photos with and just come hang out. And it's okay, but I'm still gonna make you sing. Mark my words. And what were you gonna say, Ray? Bram Stoker's?
Ray's talking about it was the name of the movie that I referenced was Bram Stoker's Dracula. And
right. That's
yeah, and I know about the Marvel Legends one. It's on pre-order. It's all good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he's all about it. So anyway, this is looking great, and I agree. The new wave looks really looks solid. And so that said, Spiro's is sort of like an exemplar. They're just one of many companies that will be there. Oh, actually, before that, dude, this guy I kind of mentioned like first I mentioned that this guy's a customizer. So I shared this. I didn't say like who gave it to me. I just said, an old friend, imaginaryaction, but that's actually him. So and I love this because I've always known that like these figures, the sculpts in them are awesome. And Ed Action Figs the other night reminded me and sort of said it out loud. He's like, people say a lot that the AWOC figures are real cartoony, but they're not. Like the sculpt is not. And you can see that this is when you put this brown wash on it, it really just like, and not just that, you also, you can kind of see the sort of wear and tear that you kind of created on the armor and highlighted some stuff with some metallic paint.
Yep.
What all did you do on this? Am I get my name and everything?
Yeah, dark. I took the whole thing apart and did some dark wash, but I also did some brushed on some brighter highlights on some of the fur, and then some metallics onto the armor. But yeah, that's basically it. But it's all there. These sculpts are amazing. Yep. And you've told me many times, like, yes, and I'll confirm that the articulation is really good for figures this size. I give credit where credit is due, because I love, as much as I love the Mythic Legions, it's kind of can sometimes be a little bit of a chore to kind of like, it's because they've got not as, a little bit more limited, range articulation compared to these guys. Yeah. But this is like best of both worlds. You've got like super detailed, things to work with. And if you, for me, honestly, this is, it's not, there's full disclosure, it's not a line that I collect. I'm a fan of it, but kind of like you with your Mythic. It's kind of you with like my Marvel Legends collections. Like, man, I don't need to buy these. I'll just go over to your house and go play with yours.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. But
yeah. So, yeah, no, I think this was great. And then just, to kind of show some of the BTS behind the scenes stuff. This is what it looked like to begin with. And then you can kind of see Ted. This is Ted's footage of the customizing, sort of just applying the wash. Oops.
And you know what? Shout out to, like, honestly, I've only been doing this for maybe 2 years now or whatever it is. But man, and I know we've talked about this in lots of different ways, but so forgive me for everyone else if this is super obvious to you, but just, you can learn anything on YouTube. literally.
Yeah.
And all the stuff I just like watching other people's videos, customizers on YouTube, and doing this kind of thing. Like, oh wow, so that's my education, is watching others. And quite frankly, I do also work at this awesome place where I work with these super talented people. I get to see them make things and paint things and sculpt things. So yeah.
So Listenerson like totally personally prefers the cartoony look, but it's true. It's exactly it. It's like the transformation, because the sculpting is there, the detail is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bringing it out with the wash. So this was great. And then you've got the kind of more finished product here, and
this is me doing dry brush stuff on it to bring out kind of like more of those brighter highlights out. But
and then you can kind of see here, like pulling it apart, all of that. Oops, of course, that's when the focus changes. But the parts there in the background, people don't realize actually how easy it is to pull apart an AWOC. And Adam did a great video that we highlighted in the Kickstarter update this week, where it's like that kind of breaks it down. But it's like they pop apart, that get the armor on and off, and that's kind of what we want to show, especially to like the Legions community, maybe folks who didn't know that about these figures, but and are really into like Legions because of the pop and swap, to give them a sense of like what's possible with these, and hopefully pique people's interest to do what you did here with like the painting and so I love this thing. It's seriously, it's turned out so amazing. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay. All right. And Derek, by the way, since we're here, this is the, hey, coming up in a couple of weeks, actually, Derek will be joining me here in your seat, talking more news stuff. The plan was, today, this would be kind of like the kickoff of talking a little bit more about Legions Con. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing that. So next week, I'll have Emil Wickman, who I know you're familiar with, and his customs. The week after will be Derek. So there's going to be a couple people leading up to Legions Con where we'll talk a little bit more about Legions stuff, but still, cover some of that ephemera. But looking forward to hanging out with Derek, actually, which is going to be rad. Okay, let's keep moving. And so these, let's kind of keep it as quick as we can, but I will just say these are some of the things that I picked as like being exhibitors that I want to see. I'm excited about seeing. This is the Ideas from Mars is the name of the company. Matthew Rodriguez. He has a world that he's created and a comic book called Defenders of Eden. And within that world, so complicated, is sort of a smaller corner of that world are the armies of Ashmore, which includes these sort of dinosaur creatures. And so you've seen these before, I'm pretty sure. And these, coincidentally, were also sculpted by the Four Horsemen, who helped him with the sculpting and the sort of engineering. And I believe someone from the studio is also handling production management. So the Four Horsemen do a lot for this community, which is why I think it's great to kind of highlight that this con is, yes, it's very much a celebration of what they do with their toy lines, but it's kind of a celebration of what they do for the community, like bringing in these, like they've welcomed all of these folks into Legions Con before to like share their stuff. This was a big deal like 2 years ago, I want to say. And then they did their Kickstarter, big deal at Legions Con. I don't think last year was the first time. I think 2 years ago. And then last year they did their Kickstarter. And then last year they sort of had prototypes there. So this is just a part of what the Four Horsemen do, right? They do their own stuff. They help people launch their own toy lines, whether it's by giving them space at the con or by actually working with them to bring these things to life.
So is this character we're looking at here, this is like the official product? Like that's
it is. Good question. Thank you for clarifying, because I was showing those and that might be really confusing. But no, these are like this guy is, the Stegosaurus is one of them. Those two were sort of showing off what can be done with customizing, because they intentionally sold blank bodies and sold quite a bit of the blank bodies for people who like wanted to do their own thing with it. So they wanted to kind of show that off and show off the possibilities So here's what the packaging will look like, and you can see they're definitely more on that color, kind of like bright color, very cartoony, very 90s. And then that's more of the, what's possible. So they'll be there again this year. We can, talk with them, see what they're doing, and these toys are going to be on their way shortly. But this is one of those things where like this year is going to be wild because the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025 is just going to be like the day of reckoning of all these toys that I have on pre-order from Kickstarters or whatever. And this is one of them. These are not small toys. These are big big ones.
Are they, what would you say, they big like
an ogre, but thicker.
Okay. Wow.
But thicker. So this is your first time sort of seeing those?
No, you've shown these to me before. I recognized them more in their official colors, but I didn't. It was fascinating about like the copper or whatever, the armor, the turtle with the patina on him looks amazing. Or
fascinating, right? It looks totally like an old statue. Bronze, yeah. Endless Fables, what's going on? Another member of the tribe who will also be joining me on the channel soon as we kind of do this build up. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. This is that. This is another one, which again, Meta Travelers is the name of sort of the broader world. Legendary is the name of the line of these figures. You've seen these. I remember we were talking about these, right? These were Kickstarted a little bit ago, and they're kind of in progress. I shared last week when Dave Igo was here, we shared sort of like their photos of the molds and, kind of like the early prints. These guys will be there. I don't know what exactly they'll be showing off, maybe showing, some production stuff, maybe what's coming in the line, but just again, wanted to say like, hey, check it out, man. And look at all these new toy companies. And what I like about it is they're all doing their own thing, right? It's like Ewok has its own thing. They could work and they will work on my shelves together, but they've all kind of got a different aesthetic, a different style, different sort of like genre. So I love that. I don't know.
Well, this is the kind of thing I look at this and I look at it and it doesn't sort of grab me in the same way that sort of some of the other things we've looked at and we're going to be looking at later on, like, obviously all of the mythic, the Force, Four Horsemen, and then what Spiro Toys is doing, and then I love what Realm is doing. I know we're going to talk about Brutal Realm maybe.
Yep.
I look at this stuff and it's like, it's not for me. It's something about it, but that's the whole taste. But you know what? I've learned over many years, like with anything like music or anything else, there's somebody out there, probably a lot of people who would love this and would eat this up.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to bring up, because I've been thinking about this a lot, is like we're living in this amazing time where, for whatever reason, because of the technology, that people's, and obviously factories in China and other parts of Asia and things like this, like there's that critical mass of an infrastructure of an industry to build these things. The fact I'm trying to think. I was talking to Natalie. Natalie's my wife, Brick's sister-in-law. And it reminded me of like in the 90s when we were trying to do, like I tried to do an independent comic book, and suddenly it was like, well, we have much more access to technology, like, going to a Kinko's, which is now a FedEx place, and copy stuff and bind stuff and do it ourselves. And then when the Mac computer came out, you could do your own, all that kind of stuff. And that was like, wow. I mean, people were doing their own comic books. And it's kind of like that. It's like the 90s with comic books as like 2020s is with toys. It's like suddenly it's like people have an idea, they get their funding, they do this thing, and suddenly they can bring these things to life. And there's such a variety, right? Like I don't have to care about these things, but I know somebody out there does, right? And so,
and I mean, full circle, it's like who was really active at that time and was working with like one of the sort of like bigger corporate outfits, Marvel, McFarlane, right? As well as all those other guys. And then what did he ended up doing? He ended up saying, well, I want to do my own thing. And they were like kind of what you're talking about. They created their own comic book company, which then spawned a toy company that then worked with this group of young folks who eventually called themselves the Four Horsemen. And so they kind of were in that environment. They clearly, for reasons, established themselves as an independent studio that would then get hired by these companies, like for a reason, because they probably were working in that indie spirit.
Right.
And what I just appreciate about them, you know, me and like my old punk rock days, that they're now playing a role of helping other people do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention this, but they actually sculpted these as well. And they helped with
Oh,
the
really?
articulation stuff. And I'm not sure if someone from the company is helping with production management on these, but like, that's a trip. You know, obviously they do that as part of their business. They still work for other people. But I appreciate that they also work with like smaller folks who want to do a thing, and they're helping them kind of get their thing going. Cool stuff. They'll be there. Box Forge Toys is another one that I want to say was just this last 2024 Legions Con where they first revealed these figures. They had like 2 prototypes on their table. It's kind of a relatively blank table. And they had 2 prototypes of, I want to say, these 2 figures in the center. And that was it. And then months later, they had a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter was successful. And now these figures are effectively in production and are going to be coming out soon. So they'll be there, right? I hope folks are seeing a pattern because, like, and this is great. I've got a couple of these coming in. I've got a couple of those like a couple, not a ton, like just 1, 2. Same with Meta Travelers, 1, 2. Because like you, like not everything grabs me, but then sometimes they do, like these guys, and where I'm like, okay, I basically need everything that you're doing because I really like what you've got going on, and I know these guys grabbed you too.
Oh yeah.
So they will definitely be there as well. They're kind of in that sort of entrance hallway section. So be awesome to meet them in person. Why don't you, I know you were talking to me about sort of like what you were picking. What was it about these figures in general that grabbed your attention?
Well, at first, I just want to say I wasn't as into them at first because I think you told me that the intention was that they would be a smaller scale, like closer to Marvel Legends. And it's just like, to me, they so want to like live on my, you know, excuse me for making anybody dizzy. They want to live with like those Legions guys up there, you know.
Right.
They want to live with over there. And it's sorry. You want to go back there?
Yeah.
It's still getting set up, but there's a bunch of Legions up there with a lot of G.I. Joes.
Yep.
But these guys are amazing. And like you said, you've talked about the articulation and how, you know, great it is and great bucket figures. But what I really, really appreciate is just that the variety of like skin tones and different like references, like I said earlier, that they're pulling from in a really like respectful way, but it's still like, it's not the History Channel. It's like, it's fun. It's still fantasy. I'm pretty impressed with how like, even though they're like, it's the old school Masters of the Universe thing, right? Where they're, you know, using the same buck and maybe just different colors. But I think they did a really, really good job of using that one body and getting as much out of it as much as possible. And then when they go into like the furry guys, amazing. But like the details on these guys, I mean, again, from what you're getting are crazy. And, you know, we were talking about just the possibilities of just, you know, this they had like a wolf version. It reminded me of that Sega Genesis game that you had like back in
Altered Beast.
Not
me. Not me, our cousin.
Oh, was that our cousin?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't have a Genesis.
Right. Oh, but then the women, right? So it's just like, this is great. And I think what I love about all of these things, and going back to even some of the sci-fi other lines that we were talking about, is how they can complement each other, right? Like this can live on my Legions adjacent shelf, and like I feel like they'll just like, you wouldn't bat an eye, they'll fit right in, you know. And I think that's really cool. And you know what? Honestly, with my G.I. Joe collection, it's like there's other things that I'm looking at, like, you know, Fresh Monkey Fiction, Operation Monster Force, and those two things kind of come together. And that's no accident, right? I mean, these guys are all smart, but I appreciate, again, just the variety and the fact that they can kind of just keep pushing. Because let's face it, Four Horsemen and Mythic Legions, they can't do everything, all the things.
Yep.
Right? You were talking about earlier how they're kind of, this is one of the things I want to ask them on Intern for a Day, is like, how much of it again is just like you guys sort of serving yourselves,
right?
I gotta imagine there's guardrails to that, because at the end of the day, they're still a business. They still have to like stay above, you know, stay in the black and pay payroll and do all these things. So they have to have some filters. They can't all just be like, I just wanted to do a thing, so I did it, right? But what's cool about it is like what some of the things that they might feel they have to pull back on. There's so many of these other manufacturers to say, hey, there's something that Mythics isn't doing, and I love what they're doing, but I have another kind of take on it, or what they're not doing. Maybe I can start to explore that, but they can kind of live together. And I think that's what I feel, at least, or I'm starting to see with what's here with Brutal Realms doing.
I'm with you on that 100%. And I think that's so like, there's magic there. There's so much possibility there if you look at it that way. And I know we all collect differently. Some folks are like, I stick to this line. Totally get it. But you're absolutely like take a look at this basic, like this is the beginning version of real early sculpt. Amazing. But you just look at the silhouette and you're like, you're not going to get that silhouette for a while from Mythic Legions. You're just not, because that's not their body type. But to your point, these could mix in really well. And yeah, because early on, there was a certain point when I asked them, hey, what are you going for in terms of scale? And there was a point where they were really talking about skewing much closer to Marvel Legends, which is that point when I told you. But at a certain point, I'm sure they heard a lot of people in their ear, including myself, giving you some different advice in terms of like which lines you might want to consider being compatible with, to your point. Yeah. And so here we are.
What else? You have to, like you said, look what else is out there in the marketplace, and how can we kind of complement, and how can we kind of carve out our own niche.
Yep.
But also, at the same time, give people what they want, and I think that's amazing.
Well, that's the thing.
I was telling you, I did it. You saw my custom 1.0 Legion's body Conan that I did, but I gave you my rundown and scheme of the basic barbarian guy that they have over here.
Spoilers, but yeah,
like, man, that's the perfect. That's the perfect recipe or starting point for the Conan that I really wanted, with all the articulation and all that.
You're not alone, Thanos. It's okay. I'm there with you. We've got a support group. It's all good. Yes. And it's hard not to, because at the end of the day, like, as you pointed out, there is this like critical mass of accessibility to the tools needed to make these things, to the factories, to the knowledge of how to handle the logistics for it. It's not as hidden and inaccessible as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this stuff isn't exactly rocket science either. It's just that before it was behind layers of mystery.
Well,
and so
go ahead.
Oh, no. So I was just going to say, so now as a consumer, we're seeing all this stuff coming out. And if you're just a fan of toys and genres in general, you're like me. It's hard to resist these things, especially when they can work together. And then I think that's, to your point, and to what I was trying to talk with the Brutal Realm folks pretty early on when they're talking about scale. There's going to be a certain point when people they're going to have to pick and choose, right? Because there's only so much, we have so much space, so much money. But then why maybe you might be able to earn more, I guess, customers if you can find ways to make them work together, and you can get people into the mindset of myself and Thanos and realize, oh, I can just get one or two and it could totally work in this way, right? So that it's not you're not cutting anyone off, right? If you make them totally incompatible,
right,
well, then you've just kind of cut people off.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, no, I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier. I didn't use this word, but just with all the infrastructure that's out there now to make and manufacture action figures and toys and everything else.
Yep.
In Asia, mainly China, the other thing that's sort of like, I'm reminded when I look at this, the other thing that's sort of like supercharged this whole maker thing and make your, own toys, etc., is access and to the software, right? People can like
100%.
do 3D sculpting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not this. When I was starting, I don't date myself, like, back in the day with 3D modeling software, like Silicon graphics machines that cost like, the same as like a nice used car. Now it's like, just go get a laptop and you just go start. There's free software out there, whatever. I mean, and it's all access, right? It's like we have access to all these, these things to make stuff now. And that's I think that's part of it. I think it's worth noting is like people now have the ability
100%
to kind of like, kind of create their things from their imagination,
Here, let's try and do rapid because I do want to get to your stuff. But speaking of access, you've got people who are doing so. Wade of Unparalleled Universe has always had this sort of character in his mind, you know, of like he's created this character, had this story for this Sasquatch type spirit character that like gets sort of reincarnated or reemerges on Earth and at different points in time throughout history. And so he's been doing the whole, you know, toy YouTube thing for a long time. And then eventually was just like, hey, man, I want to do my own toy line. And he did. And that's his character Odious here that I have, that I love, who's totally buried amongst these parts right here. But he will be here as well. He's going to be like around the corner from where I'll be posting up with Spiro and Awok. But it's, you know, you got your body of the character, and then his whole thing is like, it's kind of like a Mezco figure in that it's like really about then hyperposability and then the soft goods to kind of create like these different periods of the Odious character. Yeah. So like, you know, there's this one coming up soon with, you know, different head, same body, but different soft goods. I assume same body. I might be wrong on that. But I'm pretty sure it is like sort of reuse, but like all that to say is like, hey, you've got a guy who's like, I have an idea. I've been talking about toys for so long. I've had this idea for a character. Let me go in and make it. And he did it. And again, he'll be at Legions Con. So it'll be great to see him there doing his thing. It's to your point, man. There are like people have now the space and ability to do these things. Oh, I think I might have brought him up a little too early. Sorry about that. But here, I'll bring Arthas back later. Monsters, I think, as people know from last week, will also be there, kind of walking around. But I just wanted to shout them out because they are creeping up on that goal to get these figures made. They were like at 60,000 just a couple of days ago, and they're up now to 101.
Wow.
So Dave will be there. And again, just to give you a sense, give folks a sense of like the interconnectedness and the role of that the Horsemen play, not just for their own line, but in the entire, essentially like indie industry. Again, I think it's Chris Gorich from Four Horsemen who will be handling the production management stuff for this line as well. So, you know, it's interesting. It's just really interesting to kind of see this. The Four Horsemen essentially are like this pretty important hub that a lot of this that's helping to make a lot of these things real. Okay, let's shift gears. You're a customizer. You said you wanted to meet different customizers. These are a couple of folks that like whose work that I've followed that will be there, and I'm looking forward to seeing their stuff in real life and meeting them in real life. Giovanni, of course, was here on the channel a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely want to see what he's been cooking up. I have a sense of it a little bit, but there's so much more I know that I'm going to be surprised by. I know you've come across this stuff too. We've talked about his stuff. What is it about his work that you that draws you in?
I'm shaking my head like this because it was still in disbelief. But
what
I love about this, other than the obvious, you know, kind of stuff that it's not the everyday thing that you're going to see all the time,
right?
Namely because it's people of color, but even beyond that, just his stuff is so tasteful. It's like it's so not just crafted well, but he has such good taste. The way he puts things together, the different elements, it's super thoughtful. And like, I mean, honestly, it's like I would probably want to buy all kinds of things that he's done, but probably more than that, it's like I would want to give Giovanni my money to say, dude, give me a workshop. Show me how you do this. Show me how you paint those eyes and get those. Show me, bro.
Absolutely.
I do this stuff, but it's just like, not that. I mean, like that is, you know, his stuff is
squished.
Again, just it's so tasteful and artistic. It's like, I mean, talking about what we were saying earlier. Sorry to beat a dead.
No, it's fine.
But just the whole thing about, you know, there's something for everybody out there. It's not real, but it's that. This is just another example of kind of like, yeah, I'm glad there's people like this dude who's like filling that hole, filling that gap, and taking this, like, if you want to call it a genre or like this group of, people from a certain, whatever section of society, and really kind of celebrating it, but doing it in a tasteful way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, it's amazing. This whole thing could be its own toy line. Even
exactly.
though I know I'm looking at stuff from Mythic Legions and everything else, but like,
mixed in, but still it could be like the overall feel of it could launch its own thing. Yeah. Even this, like the
oh yeah,
taking it's so good. Like the changes that he makes to these characters.
I mean, going back to like art school days, right? It's like this dude, like and I don't know how much if he studied art, but like, I mean, I remember watching that episode with you, but he has just such a great sense of color and color combination and contrast. Dude, this is, I mean, come on, look at that.
Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of Giovanni's work and getting to connect with him in real life for sure. The other one, which I brought up a little bit early, but Arthas, whose work I like a lot. I own an Arthas Zoran, super nice guy. I had the ability to meet him because he visits the Bay often. He's been on this kick of these women and trying to, like, this very particular style of painting the eyes that reminds me of like old pinups, but like more like I don't know if they're originally from Asia or they were like from the West, kind of like trying to mimic like this sort of quote unquote Orientalist style. You kind of know what the paintings I'm talking about, like these women, these sort of pinup. Yep. And so he switched up his painting style that he's got going on. I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's just, again, different. And I think that's
like early 20th century, like 20s, 30s.
Yep. Some advertisements, posters, right? And that's the nice thing. It's like you just saw Giovanni stuff, and then you see this stuff. Like there's even though it's all based on the same canvas of Mythic Legions parts, there's such a variety of stuff going on. And so I'm really excited to see this stuff, like all of this stuff is some of his older work, some of which he had available last year. So we'll see what he comes with this year. I'm excited about that. So we shall see. Arthas Zoran. I haven't been saying the booth numbers, but Arthas will be at booth 79. But you know what? That URL at the bottom down there and that QR code, it's all in the document. So if you really wanted to know, hey, what booth are these folks going to be? That information is all there, and that QR code's there as well. Okay, this guy, I know we mentioned him earlier. He's going to be on the show next week. Emil Wickman. This guy and his taking the Mythic Legions canvas and applying all sorts of different nerdy, geeky IP that we all know and love, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars. Now you can see Warhammer, Harry Potter he's done, and just kind of worked it into this. Not going to don't need to show too much because, again, he'll be on the show next week. But I know you've looked at some of this stuff, right? You've seen his work before.
Oh yeah, amazing. Again, it's just, like you said, it's a different approach. But look at that. I mean, it's come on. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it's just it's amazing. But it's also really cool too, like, because like just like Giovanni's work, starting mostly with Mythic Legions, and then seeing Emil's work starting mostly with Mythic Legions, and I think sort of some Cosmic Legions in here too that he's used. But just sort of seeing it's like a canvas, right? That people start to make it their own and do something with it. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm behind on the chat, but yeah, folks are shouting out. Giovanni's for sure agreeing with us that his stuff is solid. And I, again, this is where like I traffic. Like I love Star Wars stuff. I love his DC. Like that Lobo is great. The freaking Shredder. But he does stuff that I just find interesting that it's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. Like this is based on a video game called Chrono Trigger. I've seen the sort of like the art from it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like she looks cool. And then I think there's this one's kind of rad. Again, I will look at that with Emil, but just wanted to give folks a sense of, man, there's this show is going to be crazy. And we're going to see this is just some of the people that we're going to see, not all of them. Steph Delatour, more on the props and the playset type stuff. He does figures as well, and like by no means a slouch. Does great stuff, but like, you know, things like this is kind of like what you were saying about like, what else can I add to my shelf that would kind of build out the world? What do you think of like the whole Dio thing and the accessory stuff like this?
Oh, well, you know, I love this stuff. I mean, well, you know, we grew up playing with play sets. I mean, everything from like, my, what were those Fisher Price guys with the round heads?
Venture people.
No. The
little
ones. You put a round peg in a hole.
Yes. Yeah. I'm blanking. Folks, help us out.
Everything like
Real Estate album cover.
Your kids played with my toys that are still at Mom's house, of like the little town, and
I still have the Sesame Street one here.
And they had like a parking garage, but like, and then fast forward to Star Wars and the Death Star playset, and then G.I. Joe, and we had I mean, Castle Grayskull. It's like, you got to have these environments. You know, it's funny. It's like, and going back to what you were saying about like, you know, pulling from my own sort of references as a kid, it's like, yeah, man, it's like when I'm thinking about stuff I'm building there for Disney parks, I can't help but think that some of those play sets and those things that we were interacting with as kids and building and doing things with, it's like, it's all there. It's like, those are references I kind of pull from, you know?
Yeah, that castle you made is basically it's a play set. And you're like, okay, totally.
No, so I love this stuff. Yeah.
Doing everything from like, not just the you know, like the big sculptural like pieces, like the throne, but also stuff like this, magic effects, right? Especially with the recent wave. And so his stuff is really cool. He's going to be there. Do Art Studios. That's how he pronounces it. There it is. It's weird.
I thought it was Duarte. Okay.
I think the last name, I'm assuming it is, but when he's pronounced the studios, probably to emphasize that, get it like Do Art.
Do Art. That's clever.
Yeah. So I think it's like Do Art Studio. This guy is crazy prolific and like does a bunch of just different types of things. He started doing a lot of stuff for RC cars and like that kind of world where like scale mattered to that set and realism mattered. And so has then moved into like, you know, toy stuff. So every little things like this, right? He's real good at the weathering stuff. A lot of warns. Look at that.
Yeah, that's all storytelling. That's storytelling right there, right?
Waste management.
Yeah, like because you look at that, like, man, what made that hole?
Yep.
Is it like a creature that like came out of there, or some dude, you know, Batman threw down from the 8th floor?
Exactly.
You know.
And of course, he totally sells the bags of trash too. There's the ice maker. Oh, sorry, the ice maker. And bags of ice. So it's like that. That's what he's doing, which is great for like, look at that, like the photography community in particular, right? Like looking for things to kind of, there you go. There's little bags of, we swear that's ice.
That's awesome.
Cool stuff. He'll be.
Yeah. Lots of people in the chat reminding me that yes, they're called little people.
Yes, thank you. Like we were like, what are those little people with the big heads? Did anybody catch Did people not catch the Sunny Day Real Estate? Remember that record? That was the album cover. Anyways. Thank you so much. Yeah, all good, Nolan. Hey, here's Nolan. He was in Intern for a day. I was gonna try and show his video. I don't like showing things like that if I don't have permission. But thank you, Nolan. Appreciate you and looking forward to meeting you. He was at Intern last year, and so he'll be back at the show. Get to meet him. He's out in Chicago. Yeah, man. Part of this is like not just obviously these talented folks. He's also a super talented YouTuber and collector and customizer as well, I believe. But just meeting people, right? Like people that I've been kind of interacting with online or like, hey, you know, I watch your videos, and it's going to be really cool. Making community, virtual community, real community is going to be kind of cool. This is, are you familiar with D. Blake Makes?
No.
Okay. So D. Blake Makes is definitely different. I love featuring him because he does, like, he's a maker too. Like, you know, I know you're a fan of the laser cutter, and you've played with kind of little things, you know, on your own. So he's very much in that world, loves playing with, loves making things, period. And then has figured out this fun thing to provide the community that like just, it seems weirdly like obvious when you see what he does, and you're like, why hasn't anybody thought of doing this sooner? This is not the best shot, but he makes these signs. I don't know where the video is, and they're meant to like, you know, kind of like decorate your shelf. So like if you got a Warhammer collection,
Oh, okay.
and so I'm gonna try and find, like, he'll do these, and then he either paint them or sometimes use like, I don't know what it's called. It's not quite enamel, but it's like I don't know what the process is, and I'm not even gonna pretend to know. But he's got a ton of this stuff. Here you go. You can kind of see his wares. Like this is before it's painted, and it's cool because people put them on their shelves, and it's like, you know, it's that final piece for your comic book, right? That is like the type treatment, right? Of what is going on, D Blake. So here, check it out. Like, you know, like that painted kind of is
like
dropped in.
you said enamel. It's kind of like that.
It's like enamel, right? But I don't think it is. I'm not exactly sure, but it's kind of cool. It's like some people kind of make this like these real world comic book stuff.
That's awesome.
Like just a kind of a finishing way. And again, it's just, I love the creativity. To your point earlier, more and more people are getting access to stuff and just making things that like, look at that. You got your Spawn shelf, you got your Mortal Kombat shelves. I love it.
Yep.
And at his same table will be Josh Brown, who was here on the channel 2 weeks ago, with his custom parts. And
man, I gotta be careful. I got a whole bag of like custom heads that have just primed, unprimed, that are just still sitting there. Like, oh man, I gotta get to those eventually. These are amazing.
Yeah. All right. Let's transition a little bit. Let's do a little bit of focus on maybe. You still there?
Yeah,
did I lose you? Okay, cool. Sorry, looked like my screen froze up a little. So these are all like the great people that are going to be there that we get to see and check out their stuff. Not all of the Legions community, of course, can make it out. It's a thing. It's a whole thing to make it out to New Jersey for some of us, right? Especially us on the sort of the western side. And so there's a maker that both you and I look at, whose stuff that we love, and that's Alejandro Soria. Skella Soria for those unfamiliar. So let's enter into the That's What's Up section, and let's take a look at his stuff real quick as a customizer, an example of someone who won't be. I've checked in with him. He's like, nah, I don't think I'm going to be going this year. But man, so I'll just continue to admire his stuff from afar, and you know, signal boost some of this. And in particular, I wanted to look at this is a recent one that like is very much of our time. I remember this as a kid and kind of being freaked out a little bit by seeing this who was it? It was
Legend,
dude from the Muppet movie.
The actor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was from
Rocky Horror
Picture Show.
Yeah.
British actor. Yeah, it'll come to me.
Yeah, it's okay. We're both of age, and someone that's a beautiful part of the. But anyway, from Legends, someone will tell us the actor. Tim Curry.
Tim Curry.
Is that a name? Okay, cool.
Yep, there it is.
So this is the Darkness from that, and so good. There you go. Thank you, Solo Sinner, and yes, thank you, Ray, for the title assist. But again, taking Legends, making it with Legend.
Yeah.
But there's the custom head that, you know, someone prints and he paints and then takes the body, but also like this stuff, right?
Yeah. Like how?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we won't be able to ask him there, but we can DM him. He's super friendly and
I've done stuff you've seen with like Milliput and stuff.
Yes.
But like that's really small.
Yeah. And it's on there, and it seems to be on there fairly good. At least, you know, I don't know what kind of handling it'd take, but maybe that's a custom torso. Maybe. Yeah, actually look at the muscles. That's not
Oh yeah, all the extra
those
veins.
aren't Legion's abs.
Okay.
So that probably solves that. But still, like, absolutely amazing. And then we sort of see here the in progress stuff. Yeah, there you go. Duh. Answered my own question by clicking to another image. I love Skeletor stuff. Like this thing. This is like Figment from the Disney company. Or no, like Maleficent, right? Or something just so cool. Such a great looking. That's
and Figment coming together.
Yep. Like an ogre scale custom head. But look at the paint. I love the application.
To me, I think, you know, if I could do talking about a lot of folks so far, you know what I mean, and what makes them all sort of unique and different. But for me, what I love about his work is just the quality. It's like the dude, like I mean, having met, you know, dabbled in this myself, it's like I have a lot of work put into that. And here's the other thing that blows my mind is he is prolific, right? I feel like every time I'm on IG and Instagram, there's another one. He just did another one, and he did another one. I'm like,
100%.
What are you doing, dude? Do you sleep or eat? You just do this all day? I don't understand.
No, it's amazing. Like he's always cranking them out. One of the first things I ever saw him do was like or one of the first things that I ever wanted to highlight here was look at that, the side of that profile. The sculpt is dope too. This is Planetary Dog. Yeah, but then the paint really kind of brings it to life. But he did like a Master Blaster from Thunderdome. Yeah. But based on like Legions, so it's like the ogre scale with a little dwarf on his back.
Cool.
Yeah, this is great. And then there was the Wukong. I just thought, you know, we've seen like Wukong is having a moment, which is great. But just sort of seeing his different takes on Wukong, he's taken this again head from what is it? Blackbeard Tatch did the sculpt, but then you'll sort of see this version and some of his earlier versions, both amazing. Like look at the paint. Yeah.
I mean, so much work, and like he's, you know, and the volume, right? That's the thing that blows my mind is the volume of stuff this dude does.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, just to give you a sense of volume, you could just keep going, and it keeps going after this, and it keeps going. But this one I was really into too. Just again, it's the paint, right? It's that. It's like all the best parts of Halloween. Like I love it. She looks old. Like all that skin is just sucked in against that skeleton underneath everything. And of course, a lot of that is, of course, the sculpt. But as we saw with your work with AWOC, like the paint job really can just transform it and make certain things more visible. Like you'd probably just miss some of this detail if it weren't for the way that he handled the paint work.
Yeah. And you know, it's like it's easy to forget that when you're looking at it this close up, that this head is like that big.
Right.
That big. You know?
Right.
Oh my God.
And the hair, right? You see the strands. So good. And here's the like sort of finished, or I don't know exactly finished, but pretty cool stuff. And I didn't even get into like, you know, all the people that are going to be there with soft goods, right? Whether it's C. Jessam's going to be there. Oh gosh, Ackerman. Sorry, I'm so bad forgetting your first name. The Strupp family. Like there's all these folks who are going to be there just with soft goods and all the weapons and the dios we didn't even talk about. Like it's going to be a great time. Totally looking forward to doing it, and it's going to be cool to hang out and just geek out. Like it's funny because obviously you were the first person I ever played with action figures with and appreciated action figures with, right? And here we are, like we're like between us is the age 50, and we're gonna go to a convention and look at toys and sell toys and talk to people about making toys. And so
well, you know, honestly, it's like I said, I'm in the business of making toys just at a different scale too. But what I'm amazed, going back to what I said originally, it's kind of like, but look at where it's gone, right? Look at how detailed these things are. This isn't what we played with as kids.
Right.
I mean, so it took us, 40 something years to get to this,
Yep,
I started playing with toys, and it's just like, so I kind of keeps me interested, right? Because it's not just like plateauing at 5 points of articulation, or 3 3/4 scale. They just keep making them better and better and better and better. So yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. Adam's telling me, I know. Yep. Nothing you've said here is untrue. So here, okay. So that said, you are still making toys on a smaller scale, not just the giant life-size play sets that you help create through your work. You are Imaginary Action, which is a thing that you've been doing for your customs, right? And so tell us a little bit about like the whole customizing thing. So I'm going to look at some very specific pieces, but when was the first time you started painting 6-inch figures? Because I will say, folks, this is not the first time he's messed with stuff, and I haven't talked about this with you in a while, but do you remember like back in the day, you used to make stuff out of cardboard? You made that one plane that you painted black, that jet that was like, do you remember that at all? It was black and yellow.
Yeah. I remember that.
That was totally out of like the back of like a notepad, a legal pad that you get cut up.
Yep.
And then I'm trying to think of some examples. There was the Adventure People Jeep that you decided needed to be camo. So you've been painting in toys for a long time.
Yep.
But when was the first time you took to like modern 6-inch plus action figures and started painting?
That was probably 2022.
So it's only been 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years that you've been doing this stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah. So,
but you've been painting and working in other media before that. Yeah. So like, unlike some of like Skellas we were looking at earlier, it stops here after a couple of scrolls. So that's it, right? Like this is, so there's not a whole lot. And I know you started posting these well after you were painting, like you created the IG a little bit after you started, but this says 93 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've been posting stuff elsewhere, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, mostly starting on IG, but some more lately, like on Facebook as well. But just this stuff, it kind of got me back into social, but like I didn't want to be about me. I wanted to be more about like this thing and this hobby I'm interested in. I've totally like abandoned the social about like, look what I ate for lunch today and look where we're at kind of thing. And this I find this much more interesting. And so, and it actually started here with like G.I. Joe. So like, for those of you who don't know, when Hasbro started the classified line, I think I was still living in Tokyo. They came out with these kind of brand new designs based on this video game that they were going to release or whatever. And I didn't take to it because like when I grew up with this in 1982 and you and I grew up with this in 1982, it was like, for me, it was such a fundamental, like these toys were they just grabbed me. I was even, read the comic books. I went through the whole entire collected the comic books, used to go down to 7-Eleven and buy them, this whole thing. But I started wanting to kind of like bring them closer to what they looked like when I was a kid. And so that rock and roll to the side there was kind of like the first time I dabbled in like painting a head. That was a breaker head. And then this other company that I don't know if you've talked about them before, Gridiron Studios, started selling weapons and things for them. Again, and you can kind of like make the version of the character that, that I grew up with, from the comic books. And
see, I didn't realize. So that breaker was the first head that you painted. Wow. Okay. And so this is definitely some of your earlier stuff that we're looking at here.
So there's not really a lot going on here, but that's all that counts. But like here, like I was really, this Scarlet here, I completely repainted because I didn't really like what was going on with the body, the bright colors and all these kinds of things. And I, started the more and more I got into it, like I added those little shoulder pads. Some seller on Etsy, forgive me, I don't know their name, was selling like little accessories that they were 3D printing, obviously. But I was kind of using it here. Yeah. Because it was it had like a Cobra logo on it. Like I don't want to use it as a Cobra logo. So I kind of shaved that off and smoothed it down and use the equivalent of like the Tamiya, like Bondo stuff. And I bought 2 of them, just kind of glued them onto Scarlet there just to kind of like make it my own. But, this is a departure from the comic book version that we all grew up with, the cartoon one. But kind of wanted to kind of like, if this were a modern take on that, what would it be without all the kind of bright colors that Hasbro was she was originally like, this figure was originally served up, and so again, looking at videos on YouTube and seeing how people were taking paint off and using washes and all those kinds of things, I kind of started to hear, and then it snowballed. But I actually started with that motorcycle first, that I showed you before I started even painting.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, so yeah, I definitely was going out of order, but since you started talking about taking them to like the 80s place, like trying to get closer to that, I figured I'd show some of that stuff that I'd picked out, like Gung Ho. I know you and I were talking about like, okay, so there was a new version, and just mind you, folks, this was not like some of the stuff that's out there in terms of like, oh, I hate this, like Hasbro's ruined it. It wasn't that at all, but there was this just natural desire, like, oh, I want to bring it back closer to what I had. And this is before the
official, like
the official, what is the carded retro?
Yeah, the retro version came out. Right.
So you were just like, well, let me try and do it. And so this was you bringing Gung Ho back, like pulling him back a little bit. What did you have to do on this guy?
I believe like the vest and the accessories, like the arm, the harness thing came from a seller on Etsy, but the vest, the backpack, and the cap were from Valaverse.
Okay.
Which clearly they knew what they were doing when they were selling this pack, right? For people to do this.
Yeah.
So I read the signs, but then I added wash and did some dry brushing, painted some camo on the legs, and just again, it's not like a one-to-one recreation of like what was done in the original figure that I had, which you take a step back, you look at it, that little figure from like 84. I think he was 84 when Gung Ho came out, 83 or 84. I don't remember. You look at it now, you're kind of like, oh, that's silly. Come on now. Oh, there you go. So this is him next to what Hasbro then came out with as like a retro version of Gung Ho, the little toys. But I wanted to kind of like, if there was like a cinematic version that I would take seriously, because like, look, the dude on the right, I'm not gonna take seriously. But the guy on the left, right, it's like, okay, I can like live in a grittier kind of world, and it's more of an interpretation of the original, So.
And just so you know, Ted is by no means a grimdark kind of Zack Snyder fan at all. Yeah. But it was just like, oh, how do I could tone this back a little bit? So yeah, Adam's like, how dare you, Ted? The first wave was fantastic. Yeah, no, but you can kind of see the differences here, and you're like, yeah, that's super bright. And I remember that first original figure being bright too. Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's a completely different vest. Gotcha. And what's with the tattoo? Did they?
So I found something interesting out about this. So like, I don't know if it was the same in 84, but like in the G.I. Joe groups that I belong to, apparently Hasbro can't use official logos like the Marine logo.
Oh, gotcha.
And some like fans were upset with like, there's a Marine sniper that was out there, and people are saying, wait a minute, or who's, maybe it's that like Marines don't have snipers, or like there's another figure of, I'm not sure what his name is, but he's supposed to be a Marine drill sergeant, but he's wearing army patches or something like that, or they're quite off. But apparently there's a rule where you can't use those things like toys. And on top of it, if you do, you have to ask permission, and it can't be manufactured outside of the United States. So that's why Hasbro has to change it up a little bit, right? And they can't do the exact things. So yeah.
Okay.
So neither of them is the official Marine logo. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. So here's the first thing. So you're saying this was the first thing you did?
Yeah.
Really? The bike?
Yeah.
No way. Yeah. Okay. So I did not realize. And you were doing this in Japan, or when you got back?
I was doing that. When we got back from Japan, I started dabbling in this. This is like me watching like what's Adam Savage videos on like scratch building and stuff. Going, hey, I want to build that. And so the motorcycle, the donor bike, was actually, I can actually grab it here. It's from Marvel Legends.
Punisher, right?
Punisher.
Yeah.
And this is, and there's the Punisher on it. But this is kind of what it looked like before, right here. I'll just move that. This is it before, right? Kind of plain Jane and 8 bars and the whole thing. And so I G.I. Joe'd it, if you want to call it that. And like, had all that. There's like, to me, there's like this perfect nexus of like ridiculous, but kind of like a little bit grounded, in a fantasy kind of military action world. And so everything about G.I. Joe had something ridiculous added on to it. Like the Ram motorcycle had that sidecar, but with a Gatling gun on it. So
Right.
if Cobra had their version, right, what would that be? And so I kind of came up with this, and I wanted to start to work with styrene because I see all these guys on YouTube like Adam Savage scratch building with this styrene plastic. So this is all kind of hand built, and like, how do you paint things? And then I wanted to make it interactive, right? So like that gun you're looking at back there is like storytelling, like, oh, well, yeah, he's got to shoot guys from behind him, and like there's his little iPhone on there.
Oh, I see.
Gun on the back. You can
real quick. This is back. He can shoot backwards. Got it.
But also
here's the iPhone, the tablet, right?
Yeah.
Here, I'll get there. I love, and you can kind of see it here. There's a gun back there, and you've got the Gatling cannon.
Right.
But real quick, before we sort of show that, these are tiny little strips of plastic styrene that you're just shaping and gluing and.
You did. I'll be honest here. Like you can start to see here. It's like I love this thing. I'm proud of it. But like I learned a lot. That's the other cool part about it is you're learning to do things. And like I would say, like my paint quality here wasn't the greatest, but it's okay. I mean, I'm here to learn, and I think I would say it's improved over, But this was fun because it's like I grew up on, we watched movies. You were talking last week about movies we were, way too young to be watching. I had a steady diet of like James Bond movies from like age 6 and on.
Yeah,
that's always like James Bond with the guns popping out of here.
I know.
And all these crazy, ridiculous things. And that's that DNA. That's all in here, man.
Yep. And so here's to the interactive pieces, so he can pull off. The minigun, the Gatling gun, and I saw the ammo that was actually sitting across earlier, so there's a place for it right there.
Yeah, you gotta have like, and I was thinking like, well, because I ride motorcycles, it's like if I had some big heavy thing on one side of the motorcycle, there I go, right? So I gotta balance it out. So then I thought, well, then you have to have like the ammo storage on the other side, which is probably too damn heavy for a bike. But this is where I go, like,
especially if you fire all your bullets, then you're kind of like,
right. So But like, but again, I was playing with like, how do I make things hinges? And I look it up on YouTube and find some person who did it. I'm like, oh, there you go.
We'll look at some of the hinges later when we look at your your Mark 6 Vamp.
Right.
But here's the rear gun pulled out for firing, which is, sorry, this is obnoxious. I don't know how to get rid of it, but yeah, that's so cool. And the sizing of that. So that's not a gun that you bought. That's all pieces put together.
Styrene tubes and things.
Freaking wild.
Yeah. And like the ammo clips come out because at the end, once you start to go down the rabbit hole, it's like you got to, I want to like challenge myself. It's like, I wonder, could I like, how could I like make the clip come? I wonder if I could do it. And, you're kind of like learning along the way and like, oh, how am I going to attach that thing? I was like, magnets. I saw somebody else use magnets. I'm like,
that makes sense.
Magnet back there. Yeah. You can see that if you go back one more, that little round circle back there. Oh, next one. Yep.
Wait, is there a spring?
Oh, yeah. So then the other thing I was thinking about,
there's a spring.
Like, okay, this thing's going to bounce up and down back there. I ride motorcycles. Like, it's like, how is that thing going to stay steady when it's trying to shoot something? So I thought, like, like steady cams, right? And so it's like a fake steady cam. It doesn't articulate, but then I was like, where am I going to get a spring? Oh, like you and I like mess around with like pens, as a kid. Yeah. So I took apart a pen and found a spring. It's like, there you go.
And by messing around, you mean like shooting it? Yeah.
So,
and then, you can kind of see it all pulled out here. There's actual storage.
Oh, yeah, of course. Where's my ammo going to go? My extra ammo. I can't just have one. So.
You didn't paint the inside there.
I know. See? I know.
That is not show ready there, Imagineer guy.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the other thing, guys. For those of you who want to make stuff, nerd.
Bad.
This is another thing that like motivates me to do this stuff. It's like I really like. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right. Getting it wrong and learning from your mistakes.
Yep.
But like I do a job where I'm responsible for creating things or managing the creation of things on a budget, on a deadline, and all these things. The coolest thing about this, honestly, is like, look, I got no other like clients, creators, budgets, schedule. This is like all me, so I can just do whatever I want. There's no bank to break here other than my own wallet, or take my time or go, or just. So that's the best part of this too, is like I can just there's no rules, essentially.
Man, Solo Sinner, just gotta chuck you guys a tip for this talent / work you're showing off. Yeah, that's all this guy here. So great. Love guys like you who do this for the hobby. Awesome. Thank you, Solo Sinner, and thank you for the $35 Canadian super chat. Again, like this, like just constantly coming in supporting, man. It's awesome. I appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Yes. If it makes you feel any better, I appreciate the effort. I'm real good at setting aside the money, or actually, like if it's 4 horsemen, you pay for it up front. I don't like messing with that waiting stuff. But that said, it's still too much money.
Yeah, you're not like me, where it's just like I dread like opening up the email accounts. Like your order is shipped. Like I got charged.
Yeah, like Hasbro does that, right? For all your Hasbro Pulse stuff. Like that freaks me out a little. Like Kickstarter, done. Here's the money. I'm done. I had it. I did it, and and then I'm
fair.
Anyway,
totally fair.
So I'm thinking, we're running a little late on time. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let me just show. Well, no, okay, we'll do 2 things. I need to show this because I've been wanting to talk to you on screen about this thing for the longest time. Yes, before G.I. Joe was classified ever had a vamp. This is well before that. Yeah. Ted was sending me pics of this project, and I've shared it here before, again, not being able to tell you who all it was coming from, but this is his work, and it's completely scratch built, again, just like that bike. And it has working lights. It has working all sorts of stuff that we're about to show, including this little winch, rubber tires. This is like what people kind of are doing. It's kind of neat to see the gridiron stuff come out and people adding it to their stingers and their vamps and making this like cool looking, highly detailed thing. But this is Ted working with pieces of plastic, bits of Lego worked in here, bits of old model kits tied in there. Here's the undercarriage, right?
It's all styrene plastic. So like, it's 90% scratch built. So like things like those wheels and tires, like those are things that are from a remote control car, and you just buy that stuff on Amazon, right? So wherever I could, and things that like I didn't know how to fabricate, like wheels and rubber tires, I just go to Amazon and go from there. But the rest, going to the hobby store and the train store local here and buying the plastic. And but it was cool because, again, you gotta just kind of figuring out the engineering of it too, because like the steering, how the steering works.
The steering's here as well. Yeah. What is this big long bracer piece right here?
It's just another piece of plastic. Like you can buy, like I think you buy that like at hobby stores. You buy like at the train stores.
Rod. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the stuff. So before any of the plastic came, I was seeing I mentioned earlier that plane, not necessarily thinking about the connection to this, but you made that plane or that ship or whatever out of chipboard. Yeah. So like that's what this is. This is like what, mat board or chipboard or something?
The whitish parts are, and then like just for sake of time, because it was taking too long to cut it, I just got like colored construction paper.
Sure.
And like started shaping it and trying things out.
So this is you planning out the panels, the pieces, because eventually you'd cut them out.
Eventually I cut them off. And sometimes they're hand cut, but then, you know this because you were both graphic designers too in the background. I could painstakingly then measure each one of those things and redraw it in Adobe Illustrator.
Yeah.
And then have it cut on if the plastic was thin enough, on a Cricut maker. So some things I would hand cut because it was faster. But if I needed to do like duplicates of things, then I did it cut it on the Cricut maker. But a lot of it, sometimes it's just like it's faster to cut by hand. So
So here, just to get a sense of that, this is an example you sent over of the Cricut doing its thing. You can't really see, but it's just a tiny blade going in and cutting this piece of plastic. Like this is the stuff you can get like at a craft shop. They sell Cricuts like all the time, but to give you a sense of what you can use some of those tools for. And then eventually it gets that precision, right? Of like, because it's Illustrator, you can do your curves as well. And it's exactly what's in the EPS or what's in the AI file or the EPS file, AI being Adobe Illustrator, not artificial intelligence, can make that exact cut piece. And you could do multiples, right? So like
Yep.
this lens piece, right? It's a perfect match.
Well, like those windows on the sides, right? They have to mirror each other, right? That would be hard to do harder to do by hand. So it would be faster,
What's going on here? Is this like sort of a cement to kind of like
so it's kind of like, Bondo for cars, they have the same thing, like for this Tamiya stuff that hardens and you can just sand it down. And lots of corrections because there's not a lot of, it looks straight, but
right.
It's, you're kind of,
So here is the sort of like give you a sense of the functionality. Oops, just that he's working into these things, right? And that's a paper clip for the hinge, right?
Yep.
That's sort of in there. That's all it is. Yeah, it's amazing. Like just the amount of work and engineering. And so how long would you say this whole process was?
I mean, I started it in 21, but then I had like 2-month breaks and then like go ahead and add it hard. And I would say if I had to add it all up into like glue it all together time-wise, it's probably about, I don't know, like 4 months worth of work, maybe total from beginning to end. But again, there was a lot of starts and stops. I did a lot of travel. I was doing a lot of traveling back then. And I got to point this out right here. See those little bolts?
Yeah.
There's I'm reminded of this, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I got that idea from a guy that was another influence on me. He's got a channel on YouTube called Toy Gigante, or Toy Gigante. Toy Gigante. His name is Carlos. I don't know Carlos' last name, but he must be local with me here because he shops at the same Burbank hobby store that I go to. And I saw these bolts that he was using. I was like, oh man, that's great. And so again, it's just this whole like looking what other people are doing and learning from them. It's like, I didn't make that up. It's like I saw, the other thing there is you see the little white circles underneath it. He had this great idea of like getting a hole puncher and punching a hole with a styrene and you get like a little circle shape. This dude was great. I mean, he's amazing.
He's the guy who did he do his tank? Is that guy?
Yeah, that guy who did his tank and a bunch of other things. Like, man, that dude, I learned so much from that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got other videos that I'll just quickly show here because again we're running low on time, but thank you for everyone who's hung out to kind of see what's going on here, and thank you to everyone on the replay who's checking it out. I mean, you can kind of see all the love and work that's put in, all that, like translating all that stuff that you're doing kind of in your job, right? Into look at this behind the scenes, into tiny 112, well, not tiny, but 112 sort of versions, right? It's fantastic. I love it. What was this? Oh yeah, a little bit more on that suspension, and that's crazy. Yeah. This thing.
But we had remote control cars growing up, right? And I remember like looking at that stuff. How does that stuff work? And so
right. And then, I mean, it's the details is wild. You heard Ted talk about like the bike and like his thinking around detail. And then here it is with like the engine.
Right. Yeah. Like the engine. And then again, it's like I could find a model of an engine that I could use as sort of like a donor, like I think it was like a tractor engine. I just used that because that was the other thing I loved about G.I. Joe.
Wait, where when you say it's a donor, you bought like a tractor?
Yeah, I bought like a model, like some diesel engine, like
I see.
Like and then I
added
stuff. Yeah, but then I paint it and do the whole thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love all of this stuff. This is kind of what we were seeing earlier.
Yeah.
So that's like there's ammos, right? Is it for carrying ammo in this one?
Yeah. I think there's some shots of that. So the one on the right is. Unfortunately, they got all this bad stuff happening in the world, so you're learning all about things you would never learn about, like weapons of war and all these things. But I decided, okay, on one side I'm going to have these Javelin missiles, which are kind of like the modern day sort of like anti-tank weapons. Have a storage for that. You drop down, and then the other side is for the actual ammo, like for the 30 caliber gun. I don't know what I called it, but yeah, someone's asking a question here about the hinges and stuff. Yeah. I don't know if that's how Lego does it, but these are essentially the building block pieces of it here. And with these styrene pieces, you glue them together. You paper clip in, clip it, glue it, block a paper clip. I think that's what it is. I didn't know like I don't know if that Lego does it. Block the paper clip from yeah. You know what I could do to block the paper clip from coming out is I would either just add a piece on the other end just to kind of cap it off like a little circle, just try to glue it in there tight. In the doors, it's kind of gravity fed. So actually, hold on.
It's real.
It's real.
It's not AI generated. And just don't pull a Ned and drop it.
There we go. So the door.
Holy crap.
So, and of course, there's
crazy.
turns, right? So like the door here, if you look real close, they're just, I can actually pull this out. Like those are just the actual nail heads. Right there, there. And so I could actually lift this out if I want to. They're starting to come out. Those are just nails. And so it actually just sits in there. Just gravity stays in there with gravity.
And some of those old vehicles were actually like that. The ones that like get disassembled and assembled.
Yeah.
Like the original Jeep, like
Right. Whereas, actually here in these hinges, the paper, if you see it, it's not really, it's just kind of glued in there. I just got to make sure, the trick is just to make sure it doesn't get,
fused so that you can't open it. Yeah.
Right. So, there's the little missiles I was talking about in there that get, kind of, they come out of this because of course you got to, lock and load. You got to replace those things. So they come out too. So anyway, there it is.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's good stuff. Thank you. Yeah, no, I've been wanting to talk to you about this stuff for so long, but you still sort of weren't sure how public you wanted to be with it. But hey, you're public now. Well, for the few people that watch this channel. But here's a sample of post cutting. Right, it's literally just a blade going in and cutting the styrene, and you pop those pieces out. And there's a level of planning to that too, right? So you're getting enough of the pieces without wasting the polystyrene. You're trying to lay it out, and
100%. I'm trying to use as much of the material as possible, so there's less waste. Yeah.
So you're saying nail head? It's literally a nail,
and I just flip off the thing. Yeah. Not while it's in there, but
Oh, it's amazing and just so ridiculously awesome. Let's see. Oh, thanks. Good to note. No GDL. I wonder what's going on with Jay. So okay. But yeah, that wasn't so much for that. It's just been long. But let's see. So that's the vamp. Is there a upcoming big project? As Solo Center saying, it would be cool to follow your next big project. So part of this is he's been filming all of this with the hope that maybe someday he'd edit it totally independent of me, just like turn it into something. So all the materials there, so he could show you this, right? Or did you do it for this project too? Beginning to end? Yeah. So some point, perhaps.
At
some point.
As far as
what's up, Frankie?
Yeah, next steps. I don't know. I'm looking at, you and I have been talking, but I'm looking at ways to kind of create bigger and better things. I've been looking at different tools out there, and maybe try to find a way where I can make this is a one-off. There's no way I could reproduce that. I could, but
well, you could. I mean, you could design the thing and then figure out how you'd. But that's not something
you're.
That's not what you're doing. That's not what you're interested in at this point. Here, so we do get. Let's just quickly go through some of this stuff because it's there, and I don't know when it's going to make sense to come back and look at every single one of your things. But this is a character that hasn't been done yet, and I think you did a badass job of one of my favorite dreadnoks from back in the day, mainly because of his cool gun. And actually, it was because he was one of the later ones, and his sculpt was just a lot better than the earlier ones. Like his head wasn't huge,
exactly. Yeah, he actually his proportions were kind of normal, right?
Yeah.
For a 3 3/4. Yeah,
that's a great looking one, and I think you've got a shot too with him and the boss.
Yeah,
that
was a Thor figure. The body is from Thor: Love and Thunder. Like the lower legs are from a really old Marvel Legends Red Skull figure.
This monkey wrench?
Yeah. So I sawed off the Thor leg, lower legs or the boots. And it was a kit bash of all kinds. I think that belt is from a Marvel Legends Rage figure. The head I got on Etsy and I painted. But the gauntlet thing is from that original Gung Ho that came out that I didn't like that techie gauntlet, whatever armor thing. But
Yeah.
then the gun I just scratch built from a bunch of different things. I started with like a donor gun from a classified thing, and then added stuff to it that I have. The harpoon head is from the only thing I could find. That's from Mythic Legions.
Right? Oh
yeah,
yeah, totally.
But the other thing I wanted to make sense of it because I can't help myself is like, okay, what the hell is this thing, right? So it's like, okay, so like this is like Mad Max, Road Warrior. So I think what he does with this thing is like shoots it into another vehicle or thing, and like then he's gonna like retract it back. So I kind of added this sort of like thing like a fishing reel,
right,
to it, and a string, and just to tell that story, right? That this thing will shoot, but then he can actually wind it backwards too if he wanted to grab, whatever.
So some Mythic Legions were harmed to produce this figure, and that's okay. You did a cover girl using the Wasp's head.
Using the Wasp head, but that's the cover girl body. But then, they come plain Jane, and then I just did all the washes and the highlights and or the dry brush rather and whatnot.
Yeah, she looks really cool. Again, this is one of those things where like all that stuff was already there in the sculpt.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of like did the wash. So I think all of that was cool. I like what you also did with your little, you did it with a slightly cheaper figure, than the Frankenstein's creature.
Yeah.
But you've got the bats, and you were kind of having fun messing with these guys. And I like this because it shows your process a little bit more, taking things apart, masking things with the blue tape, getting in there and bringing out the details from, again, Hasbro's got solid sculpts. It's all there. Look at that.
Yeah.
And then you also had these custom parts, right?
Right. Actually,
that I got you.
Yeah, you gave them to me for Christmas or something. Yeah.
This is one of those things. I saw them on Etsy, and I was like, man, this is cool. I don't collect Joe, but like, I want to buy and support this. Oh, I'll get it for Ted. Yeah, no, this is great stuff. And you brought it to life because it just comes in the raw plastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, here's all of the bats together. Great way to like, do the army building and still be able to like get some character and some unique stuff going on with each of them.
I mean, they're toys. To each their own. But like, I thought the yellow was too bright, so and I wanted them to like look like they were, went into battle, and
Sure. Yeah, they look really good. They look battle worn. They look all that. And then, so here's where I love. You know me. I like the funner side of Joe, the less realistic side of Joe. Not that the Battle Android Troopers were particularly realistic, but like, what if you had a cyborg in Cobra that, had bat-like leanings, but truly was like a cyborg? There's a person underneath that. Would you call him Death Mask?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's one of these things too. Like I saw that head from some Etsy seller, like, and it gives you an idea, right? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
What could I do with that? And then again, I can't help but like telling the story, like you said, the whole cyborg thing, and he's a Dr. Mindbender, like took some wounded Viper, right, soldier, and like, preserved like his head, kind of like, or like what we know about General Grievous from Star Wars.
Sure.
But it's got to be flamboyant, right? Because it's G.I. Joe, so it's gold.
And this is some of your earlier stuff, if I remember.
Yeah, this is
earlier painting stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it trips me out because it's only been two years.
Yeah.
Here he is with the troops. Boom. Oh, did I? Oh, just kidding. I probably grabbed the wrong link, so never mind. And then I know you've got love for ninjas, including the mythical version of the ninja. But this Oni mask is so cool. Was this meant for classified? This Oni thing?
I mean, no. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's run for 6 inches. Again, probably some seller I keep coming back to on Etsy, and I saw that. I said, "Ooh, what can I do with that?" And then I actually was not interested in that Cobra G.I. Joe classified red ninja. I didn't like it all that much. But when I saw the head, like, ooh, I know what I can do with that. And so then I went ahead and bought the figure and did all the things. And like, it was all the weapons were all molded in one color. Later on, they started painting them 2 colors. But like I said, no, man, that can't be all black. So I, did all that in the wash. And again, just kind of like this. Okay, this is like the alpha red ninja.
Sure, like you said, you make a mistake, you go again, right? Rework it until you get it what you want. And it's funny to think, like, I wonder how many figures are being sold just because, like, people don't actually want the figure, but are wanting to do something like what you're doing with these figures. All right, this is the section of the classified Joe special ops recruits here, right? In the tradition of getting Refrigerator Perry and Sergeant Slaughter and Sylvester Stallone, kind of, and recruiting them. You recruited in B.A. Baracus to the Joes.
Yeah. So this was an idea I saw. Someone had done this. There's a WWE figure that came out of B.A. Baracus, of Mr. T. And, the hardest thing I did here, honestly, is I actually have him reworked, and I did more work to him later on. But his skin tone was a little redder compared to the G.I. Joe Roadblock version 2 body that I used. So I had to repaint his head to kind of match the body. But that was fun, right? It's kind of like, even back in the day, right? In G.I. Joe, you'd have, like you said, Refrigerator Perry, the football player, show up. It's like, hey, man, why wouldn't Mr. T show up, Well,
I had Mr. T. Remember, I had the Galoob A-Team.
That's right.
3 3/4 that hung out with my Joes. You got Dutch. Dutch joined the Joes. Yeah, really cool. There's the kind of, this was cool to see, sort of like that process. I've enjoyed watching you do those. And then you're like, who else can we bring into the Joes? Well, they need Danny Machete Trejo.
That's right. Yeah. So I saw this head. Again, I saw this head. I was like, oh, I got to do a Danny Trejo figure. And so that's I think that's a Sergeant Slaughter, but the Valaverse version body. But then the other thing is like, where am I going to get tattoos? And then again, you find anything on eBay or Etsy, but people sell like these water decals of like tattoos and everything else. Water slides. And so that's how I got all the tattoos on there. And you saw I did the same thing with Monkey Ranch. But yeah, Danny Trejo, badass,
I think that's rad. And then, of course, they got to pair him with an actual Joe to, to train them and make sure that these, like, whatever movie stars / I don't know, whatever, are ready for the Joes. And so, this is your version of Spirit, right? But is that a Spirit head?
So it's a Spirit head. But the hair is from a Marvel Legends Bucky figure, Winter Soldier figure that I ripped that off, and combined here. And I was inspired by Geronimo, because you read Spirit's origin, he's from New Mexico, Arizona region. So he could be where, Geronimo was from. But and then the other thing too is like people kind of make that comparison to like that team from the movie Predator, right? And
totally.
Billy from Predator. And so like, okay, this is sort of like a weird kind of like amalgam of Billy from Predator and Spirit. Even though I love the Spirit costume with the blue shirt or this and that, but I wanted again to kind of like, what's the grittier version that almost pays homage to Billy from the Billy character from Predator.
Love that.
Yeah, so that, and then I think the body is from like a Falcon figure. And I think the legs are from I don't know. I mean, they're parts from everything. And then I paint them and the dry brush, all the same stuff.
It's fun, man. It's great. But then you found Legions. You've been into Legions for not quite a year?
No, a little more, probably about a year. Yeah.
About a year?
After you got me hooked. So this is one of the first things I got was like, what did they call them? The Legion, Deluxe Legion builders.
The builder.
And they got Plain Jane. And again, I just wanted to weather him up and make him more cinematic. And so, having fun and, with rust and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, he did a great job on this, especially since, again, like there's the rust damage or like that kind of damage is in the pitting and stuff.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah.
It just needs to be painted, which is like, obviously the Four Horsemen have no problem doing that because they repaint their parts in ways that you're like almost don't even recognize the original part. And they look totally different. It's kind of like what you're saying with Brutal Realm. They're the same parts, just they've been used them up in a different way, and the deco's different and the paint's different styling to the point where it's like, oh, Totally unique.
Yeah.
Did you flip that guard, the
No,
sort of eyepiece visor
it won't
upside
work.
down?
It's kind of weird. It won't fit that way. No, that's
Okay.
the way it comes.
So that's the way it comes. Okay, cool.
I didn't do anything to this figure other than paint it. That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great job on that one. That was the first one, right?
That was the first one. Yeah.
And then you started messing with, like, again, storytelling. Why don't you? What's the tell us
So-
the
so-
background on this guy?
So, like, I figured, Voligar, I think he's like the head of the vampires. No, other than Elithria is the queen of the vampires.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know.
Alithia like the
yeah,
the
but like
goddess.
Voligar is like kind of, I don't know. From what I can understand, he's a leader, king, like of the vampire faction in the vampire.
They're all family. It's a family.
Okay.
Yeah, they
okay.
spawn each other from there, but he's the head.
So I imagine, like, and this head came extra with that 5-pack, right? That thing, and I wanted to do something with it. It came I think it was just white, and I wanted to kind of like do something unique with it. So like, oh, what if there's like this one champion guy that they have? So I called him Voligar's champion, and I took the symbol that I guess from the version 1 Voligar from way back in the day. That didn't show his face. He's just a knight. He had this symbol, this sigil thing.
Right.
And so I used that. No, I take it back. His is the one with the double cross thing that's on the shield. And I created that other thing, right? Yeah, with the swoopy lines as sort of like a symbol of like, okay, that's the champion, right? But that little cross thing is Voligar's thing. So he's like, it's like he's the unique champion within, Voligar's
the vampires.
Yeah, and he's like, like that's his branding on his face, like this blood spattering, stencil thing.
Got it. So he was the champion, right? Legion champion. I love it.
Yeah.
And then, but you created the sort of sigil, and then these, if I remember, you cut it out on vinyl again. And this one, you actually put on the figures.
That was tricky. That was hard because
of the curves.
Yeah, sometimes like on these other ones I did, they stuck a little bit better, but this one for whatever reason was tricky. So I had to very carefully, use some CA glue just to kind of keep it in there.
Get it down.
But, for that precise shape, I didn't want to try and hand paint that. And the same thing
again, this is a thing you cut out on Cricut, the Cricut.
Yep.
And so you put it also here, you cut it out and you use it as a mask, essentially, right?
Yep.
And then same on the head. I love the head.
Yeah. Nice.
This notion of like.
Oh, and I wanted to black out his eyes, right? Because they all come with white eyes, kind of like he's possessed, and he's like that much whatever dark energy in him.
Yep.
His eyes are blacked out.
I love it. So this guy, and then of course, so then what's a relationship with this guy? Was this a different one? I'm trying to remember. Story-wise, like you kind of came up with like a. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. So like, what's the name of her? Oh gosh.
Oh, Lady Averona.
Averona, right? I was reading her story, right, and she's like just driven by vengeance for people that wronged her or whatever. But she's got those red eyes. I think, like, what's like just the same? So she's like possessed. I think they said she's like possessed by vengeance and revenge, and so her eyes turn red. Mm-hmm. So I thought, like, well, what if she had like scouts or somebody? And so I had this idea, and I bought the retailer, what do you call it? Krampus.
Right?
And and then these basic knights, and then I bought that head on the other head on Etsy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like these are like her scouts or something, and I forgot the name of the seller I bought the what do you call it? The soft good capes from. But yeah, so these are just repainted basic I think they were dark what are they called? Those knights with the Mythic Legions with the crosses on them.
The Templars.
Templar. So these are just the basic Dark Templar figures, and so I added all the paint details, and I figured like these are her guardians, right, or her scouts that she sends out in front of them, and they kind of have a similar. You'll see like a similar kind of color palette together. But I thought these two guys went great because they're not maybe the same race, but they both have horns.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But
I love it, man. I want to see this. This is the stuff I want to see in the line. Creatures and build out new factions, and they'll get there, but like I love what they give, and then I love that you're sort of adding to it. Here she is.
There she is. Yeah.
I think it's really cool. And again, similar technique of like masking out the
That's actually a decal. That's actually the decal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the decal you cut on the cricket too, right?
Yeah.
Where are the capes from? The soft goods.
Seller on eBay. I forget the name, but
they're nice and they look thick.
Yeah, they're nice. They're really nicely done. Nice wire, and they have little chains that connect them.
The connection. That's really cool. Oh yeah. No, I think it's a great use of these parts. That Krampus head is great.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And they've even got the little eyelets too.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. All right, last one. So I wanted to go and bookend and look at your customs with Legion stuff. So you mentioned this earlier, but this is Conan. So you've been looking for a particular Conan, a particular style, and so what did you get here? What did you end up making here?
So I wanted to go for more of a Marvel Comics Buscema style Conan, but also there's that great new run. I think is a Savage Sword of Conan. That's really good too. And so this is all a bunch of Legion 1.0 parts. But what I didn't have were like lower legs with like, bare knees and boots like that, and like the gauntlets. So I shaved down. I think it was another donor Legion builder, one of the knights, and used milliput, which is an epoxy clay, and sculpted those with the epoxy clay on the knees and painted them, because that didn't exist. I mean, there wasn't a part like that available to me, so I had to make it. Kuya did. So, which, by the way, for whatever reason, like I've never been called Kuya by my brother in my life.
It was I don't know. The family wasn't really.
Other people Kuya and Ate.
Yeah, they were real strong. Our parents were real clear about like trying to say that up to our older cousins, but I mean, they barely wanted to speak Tagalog to us, so that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Match like that. And I noticed in the old comic books he had this gold band around. Like, I gotta do it. So that's like went on the Amazon.
Right here.
Gold paper note on his forearm. I'm sorry, on his bicep.
Oh, this thing. Okay, got it.
Yeah, in the comics he has this thing. So it's a gold paper clip, Amazon. But like the armband, I used milliput. I sculpted the. So I bought two of the heads, and I said, well, in the newer comic, he has this cool helmet that's reminiscent of the Schwarzenegger helmet.
Yeah, I love this.
So I sculpted I added that onto that head, and Dremel.
So that's totally sculpted with milliput. That's not a 3D printed thing. That's old school.
Yeah. Same with the little necklace thing. Yeah.
What about this too, right?
Yeah, that's all milliput.
Yeah, so that's all milliput on top of the existing forearm.
Yeah.
So the head here, speaking of heads, let's take a look. So these were that's the head sculpt with your paint.
Right.
Necklace, where'd you get that?
That I made too with a little cricket maker. Yeah. He has this trademark thing in the comics. So.
Oh, so you made it specific to like true to the necklace. Wow, that's cool. And then there's the alternate head. So this is all sculpted on. You got two versions of this original head.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm really partial to the head, the helmeted head.
I like the helmet too, yeah. Although someone did tell me, I learned later on that like this stuff is really hard to work with, this milliput. And someone was like, "Oh yeah, I like using that extra fine milliput too." Like, extra fine? What the hell was that? Like, why didn't somebody tell me that before I started this? So apparently there's an easier material to work with out there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But it's amazing what you're able to pull off with that. He looks great. Especially if you're chasing that very particular style of Conan. And at the end of the day, like, it's a cool toy, but it's like, think of like this is what you poured into it. And so
I'm gonna do it again though with that Brutal Realm guy, and like make it even more posable.
Make a really big, thick He-Man. Yeah. Love it. All right, folks. Well, that's Ted's work. That's Imaginary Action. You can see a lot of it. Like, we covered a lot of it, but there's still a little bit more to be seen over here that you can check out. You've got other stuff that you're working on to put up on.
Eventually, I've kind of taken a hiatus because I moved and did all things, and I don't have my little workspace ready for me yet. So, but eventually, I got a lot of things in the hopper to be to be making and painting a lot of cool.
Oh yeah, I got to bring you some heads.
Yep.
Or did I already give you? I think I already gave it to you.
You gave me some of that stuff to paint. Yeah. So
sweet. So there's that, and then I know you're not like necessarily getting people to add you there, but I say that because folks in the Cabal will only know you as Julius Downey. I know you've been posting there, so
right.
It's good to just give folks a heads up that that's him. And then do you care? Do you want people to know about the his stuff or
the his stuff?
I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay. His tank. So he's been posting on his tank like way longer than IG or whatever. So that's the whole and then before we end, where does the name Julius Downey come from? Because I love it.
Well, come on, what do you tell me?
So yeah, we grew up in Downey, California, and our house was on Julius Avenue, and I thought that was really cool.
There you go.
Good stuff. Awesome, dude. Like that was long. Sorry again. Last time you were here, it was longer, but like I wanted to make sure that we looked at the Legions Con stuff, but definitely had a chance to look at the your stuff and tell people about it, because that's the thing. We're going to be going to Legions Con in November. And, you know, I think it'd be rad for people to like know your kind of like work on Legions customs in particular. Cause I think that's a lot of the folks you're going to meet, and you can kind of just, you know, hey, yeah, that's mine. Check out my stuff. And
I mean,
context.
I'm just, you know, I'm not trying to be modest, but it's kind of like, you know, when I look at some of the stuff that we look at, like Giovanni's work and Scalesori is like, well, that's, I'm not comparing, but it's just kind of like I'm more of I do this for fun.
No, your stuff is great. No, but yeah, we suffer from that disease, but no, your stuff is folks will tell you your stuff is great.
Right.
And yeah, anyway, so November, you're good. You got plane tickets.
Yep.
We've got hotel rooms.
Yep.
I think we're good to go. It's gonna be great. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad we got to kind of take a look. I need to look a little bit closer at who all is going to be there.
Yep.
But as I mentioned, next week, Emil Wickman will be here. We'll talk all about his stuff, as well as any other things that he's looking forward to at Legions Con. And then I'm going to have Derek on. We'll talk a little bit about like his experience, because he's been going to like cons over and over, selling stuff and doing the whole AWOC thing. So I'm going to have him pick his brain about like what that's all like. And he does some custom stuff too, and has like just a beautiful taste in toys. So it's going to be a cool revolving door the next couple weeks ahead of Legions Con. So definitely come back. Yeah, I think, you know, I don't really have much else to say beyond that. So check out Imaginaryaction. Check out his stuff over on IG mainly. That's the main place. And again, look out for him in the Cabal. Say hello. Tell him you're looking forward to seeing him in November. We will be there for Intern for a day. I'd love to know who else is going to be there. I don't know if folks have started mentioning that in the Cabal. I haven't been on the Cabal lately, but it'd be nice to kind of know, because that's a small group. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but it's like, what, like 30 people or something?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a relatively small group of folks. So
wow. All right.
Anyway, thank you to everybody else who hung out today. Yeah, and folks, this has come up a lot, and I've just been popping it up, but like folks definitely want you to come back and, you know, tell more stories and share your stuff. So, you know, people want to see more of your work as time goes on, and yeah, so we'll do it for sure. We'll bring him back. I know where he lives. So, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming through and hanging out for what? Almost 3 hours again.
Yeah, geez.
Happy Sunday to you, and happy Sunday to everybody else. It's always fun to just sort of hang out, talk toys. And yeah, if you're catching this on the replay, those links down here will all be there, and you can kind of see everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for staying up late, people in the East Coast.
Yeah. All right, folks. I hope everybody has a great week. Let me go ahead and figure out here. Let me do something that sounds a little pro. We'll do this. Hey. So goodbye. Bye. Go home. Like Ferris Bueller. Bye. It still says I Go Stuff. Just pretend I changed it to say TED News episode 70 or 69. What is it? I don't know. Okay. Good stuff. Bye, everybody.